Live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, lead developer, Markfoot. Community manager, Crazy Flying Chicken. And now, your host, 13-time winner of the Jeffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Jeffrey Jennings.
Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, just as the man said. Welcome back to another episode of Zero Dark PressCorps here on the precipice, or not that precipice. A few weeks away, feels like though, as we inch closer to yet another update, but almost 2 weeks away, 2 weeks and some change away from the latest summer update, the upcoming summer update, and we are all very much excited. Before we begin in earnest, just want to mention out there that things are a little crazy out there right now. Just a reminder, please, above all, and I think we can all agree with this, be safe, be safe, be safe. I can't stress that enough. But let's get back into that. Let's get back into the business. Hey, maybe while you're inside staying safe, you can play some Foxhole while we're at it. But regardless, as we said, we did have Crazy Flying Chicken here with us today. Max, community manager, KFC. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Sorry, I'm just trying to grab Mark here. Mark is supposed to be here too, right?
Yes. It's quite all right. But lots of new developments. We just dropped the developers dropped a new dev blog, as they usually do on Tuesdays opposite the dev stream, which are also on Tuesdays. But devblog 84 coming at us with a lot of juicy stuff about the industrial districts that are upcoming for the major cities throughout Siva Valley, as well as the more hot pictures of the latest vehicular modules and designs. So this is all very, very exciting stuff. KFC, Mark, what do you have to make for the latest devblog in the upcoming update?
Well, I want to start off by saying actually that we have a number of community members right now that are going to get an early look at the content, and then hopefully we'll be able to get some YouTube videos out there soon. And then you guys should be able to there should be some content out there for you guys to take a look at.
And is this by the way of the dev branch that's going to come on Thursday?
No, a little bit earlier than that. There will be some YouTube videos and some streamers, select YouTubers and streamers that will have access to some of the vehicles to properly film and showcase some of the stuff ahead of that dev branch.
Oh, okay.
We are hoping to keep the dev branch going on Thursday. So,
I'm assuming that's going to be. I guess I Saw Bear's going to be one of them. That's my guess, just based on all the update videos he does. Probably more, but regardless, can't wait for that as well. And as usual, before we get to our loyal listeners and all of our callers here, cannot wait to have all of you on. We usually do go through some opening questions, some of the more pressing questions that we're not sure if the callers may necessarily get to first. So, KFC, Mark, if you're up for it, I guess the first one here, in the last dev stream, you showed a new project. I already forgot the name of this project. Red River, from the Red River team.
I know what it is. Project Anvil.
Yes, thank you. Yes, the Project Anvil, the Anvil demo. However, there was a point about the Red River team's their work not necessarily making it to Foxhole. So that begs the question: what is the purpose of the work of the Red River team if their results will not be used in the game?
Yeah, so this is just a part of our long-term plan. Like when we set out to make Foxhole 4 years ago, we sort of had the ultimate goal at the end of the day was like, okay, can you have a persistent World War game where you didn't have all these things like the loading screens where you can get actually like thousands of players into like a huge battle that you see on screen. And there's a lot of games that do have lots of players, but if you look closely, I don't know if any of them will actually support many players all converging in the same area with a reasonable amount of performance in sort of like a high density situation. And we have done a lot of work. So basically, the end goal is to reach something where it doesn't have those limits. And one thing that we're doing is that beyond just the game Foxhole, we want to make sure that we're going to reach that goal. Or I would say rather, we're constantly taking the steps necessary to try to reach that goal. And all of this is with Red River, and the Anvil demo is us making sure that we're not just sitting still and we are taking steps to reach that goal eventually. Because, and even in Foxhole, we've already done a lot of work. Like for the Unreal Engine, I don't think there's a lot of Unreal Engine games that actually even can support the number of players that we support now. Like we can get like right now, we can get up to like 180 players on a server, which when we started out, there was like 64 players. So we're pushing the envelope in Foxhole, we're pushing the envelope with our new tech, and really it's just, we're just taking these steps. So at some point in the future, maybe there's a conversation to be had of like, maybe we can make another game using this new platform, and then yeah, we'll see what happens then, right? But this is, that's why I always like to talk to. This is why when we're talking to players, I always find it sort of, I guess it's not fair, but for them, but certainly like from our perspective, this isn't like some short-term thing where it's like, oh, next month if the sales don't work out, then this whole project's gone down. No, we're looking like 3-4 years ahead, right? So it's always funny when I hear these arguments of like, oh, this game's dead, it's gonna be gone in a month. No, like for us, we're laying out the next 3 years, right? 3 to 4 years, and we're still working on Foxhole. Then probably we'll be working on something new, and it's just many steps in the journey, right? So when something isn't working out right now, it's like, it seems like such a panic, but really it's like, it's not a big deal to us because we know it's just a step, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, in case you aren't fully aware, this game has been going to die in the next month for several years now. So just it's good to lay those plans down early. But regardless, and don't worry, that's not me coalescing to all criticisms. We've got plenty more of those upcoming. But I guess the next question here is, faction-specific vehicles is, to my knowledge, brand new territory for Foxhole. Aesthetics aside, but in terms of the numbers and how they play, faction-specific vehicles, that's new in the game. So what was the mentality going into this decision for having faction specifics, and also considerations for game balance, as well as consideration for players driving the culture in a sandbox, as opposed to kind of lore driving the culture and the mechanics driving the culture here? A couple questions there, but what was the mentality going into that decision?
Yeah, so like this one was a bit scary for us, and there was a long time when there was some amount of like back and forth on whether or not we should do it, because we knew it would be really challenging, and it might not sit right with everyone. But at the end of the day, it's really simple for us, right? Like our goal from the beginning is, let's make a game that makes you feel like you're part of a real war, right? That where players are playing out something that feels like a history, right? That something that actually might have happened. And in a real war, it's not too perfectly symmetrical side. And I know that's when everybody always comes with the argument, well, it's a video game, so da-da-da-da-da-da, right? But that's true. But for us, we like to break things down to like the simpler question, and that the answer is, okay, we just ask ourselves, which one is more like a real war, if the factions are the same or if the factions are unique. And the answer there is like super simple, right? So I think that's why we went with it at the end of the day. And that's the main reason, and then all the other reasons that kind of follow from it, like it's more interesting and so on and so forth. Those are important too. But really, we we always lead with that one simple question, right? So like, you know, you can imagine how we would answer these other sorts of questions in the future. Like, for example, should there be like a weather system in the game? Well, probably, right? If you ask that same question, right? So it's just sort of the same sort of thing for us.
And then I guess for the you recently revealed a lot of new vehicles as well, vehicle variants in the latest devblog 84. Are those faction specific as well?
Yeah. So there's actually so at one point I want to actually write out for everyone. Here are all the variants coming, because I think there's just so many at this point. That it's not exactly clear, but basically every single vehicle that we've shown is a unique vehicle to some degree. I believe that some of the default vehicles that we had previously, you might see some versions of there that are still pretty symmetrical, but it's something that we're tweaking all the way up to release. I don't know if Max, you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, we've got a lot more coming. This is just the vehicles.
Can I add something as well?
Sure.
The most hyped vehicle I'm for sure this entire update is the RPG Jeep.
Why? Why that one?
Because first things first, it's a fast, mobile, anti-tank vehicle. As well as that, imagine in this situation, there's a Warren LT pushing your front line, so you get in your RPG Jeep, and you drift right behind the Warren LT. They don't have enough time to react, and you kill the Warren LT by just drifting behind.
Well, we'll have to see how those plays out with the numbers specifically. But yeah, a lot of possibilities there, and particularly for that RPG Jeep. A lot of people have been really excited and fearful of that. But we'll see. So just to.
Oh
Go ahead.
God, I just remembered that one time I accidentally made on the last Clapfoot After Dark made HB talk about Foxhole.
Yeah. But just to be clear and reiterate, so the vehicles revealed in the dev blog, like the Stinger motorcycle, that is a colonial-only variant? Not just aesthetically, but how it plays as well?
Yep.
So
exactly
down the line, the Tankette, that Action, I'm going to butcher these names, the Javelin half-track, colonial-only, Doru landing APC, colonial-only, Highlander APC, O'Brien, Warden only. So all these are going to be faction-specific.
Yep, and I want to take that a step further because that came up in FOD today too. You also remember that the original models are still in the game. So like the light tank, the Colonial light tank, and the Warden light tank, they're still there, but they're not mirrors anymore. So don't expect the Colonial light tank to be exactly the same as the Warden light tank. And what's more is don't expect it to be exactly the same as it used to be. We're trying to move away from this whole idea that there is a standard model for anything. So these aren't standard models at all. These are just new tanks. They're just different variations on the same chassis.
I see. So Foxhole is now going full Planet Side 2, full Heroes and Generals, where now factions are truly their weaponry, and well, not their weaponry yet, but their vehicles are very unique now, and how at least their vehicles. And actually, follow up on that. How about weapons? Are we going to see like so now will the storm rifle be a Warden specific rifle, and then I guess the Volta will be a colonial one? Those are kind of specifics, but handheld weapons, are those going to be following suit like vehicles?
Yeah. So not to so if you ask that same question that I posed a little earlier, I think the answer is clear, right? So.
Yeah, so the floodgates have now opened. All right, well, we'll see where it goes. It's going to be...
And also,
go ahead.
Yeah, so there's also one thing else that I want to add is that, like, I think if you're thinking in terms of, like, in terms of what the vehicles are like now and sort of thinking, okay, well, it's going to be balanced because I'm imagining what, like, the light tank is now. Well, the thing is, in this update, the vehicles have changed so much, like, not just in terms of, like, the variants, but the old vehicles... you got the new physics, you got the new subsystem, you have the armor system, that it's like all preconceptions are gone at this point, right? It's just a new system, so.
Okay, the can of worms has been opened in terms of game balance. Data and perception. It's gonna be big now. But we'll see where that goes. We'll see where it goes. Can't wait. So then moving on here, there has been a change in how player reports are now being handled, with them now being sent directly to Clapfoot, the Clapfoot website, via a ticket, if I'm not mistaken. Can you go into the reasoning and the reasoning for this change, and if things have improved recently?
Yeah, Max, do you want to take that one, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot has changed. In fact, it's very much the same system that has always existed. The only difference is that it's being handled by a Clapfoot employee instead of a volunteer moderator. But as far as how you should expect those tickets to get handled, at this point, it should feel no different, except that you have to do it through the in-game system. Ideally, we'd like to get a much more complete system, hopefully one that you can report directly in the game as opposed to going to an external site. But the system right now, as it works, is it's functional, and we're more interested in sort of figuring out the social problems with it as opposed to the technical issues first. Once we know where the weak points are in it, then we'll know how better to implement it in the future.
All right, we'll see how that plays out, particularly with the uptick of the avalanche of reports you are absolutely going to get come August 12th or whenever the summer update gets pushed back to. But yeah, we'll see what happens as with all of these things as we wait in the wings. Last question here for me, because I know we definitely want to get to our callers. Just getting to the callers, getting to the most pressing questions here. I have this clip from the No Man's Land live podcast run by the 82DK leadership, or at least some members of them. First thing I want to say is go watch that podcast. Go watch those shows at twitch.tv/No Man's Land live. That's a fantastic program. I love it. Don't necessarily agree with all the things they're saying or the direction that they may want to see the game go in, but just the fact that a group of players are taking 2 hours to, in detail and quite clearly and plain spoken, going into, how their vision of the game is, I think is a fantastic format. And please go follow that channel, and love that conversation. But there was a clip there that stood out to me, particularly about the revelation of the unicycle in the dev stream. And obviously, again, they realize that it's a joke. So the clip I'm about to show you, it may seem like they're not getting the joke, but they know it's a joke. But there are some kind of frustrations underlying with that. Now, Mark and KFC, I have sent this clip to you personally in DMs, because there's so many different ways to show on Discord. But I'm going to switch to this clip, and I'm going to watch the full 3-minute thing. And let's just see your reactions to this one.
Oh, stop. Oh my god.
Surprise. So you guys remember how Kaz was kind of complaining a bit because this update is all about vehicles and nothing for infantry. Here you go, Kaz. Tell us about how you're going to be utilized.
Thank God.
Finally,
the change we needed.
For the infantryman, for the casual Joe.
We're drafting all of our best men from every section into the new unicycle battalion.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, we're gonna learn to use bayonets from the top of these things. So they'll assist. They're not unicycles. They're called bayonet charge assisters. So yeah.
I mean, we laugh, but they already put the effort of making everything from the animation to everything in this. So if they ever decide to put them in, be careful, FA guns everywhere, because
that's something that's always puzzled me about them. You know what I mean? They make it, they think of something the night before and they think, oh, that's good, that'd be super cool, that'd be a funny joke to put in the game, and they put it in like better than some of the other stuff that they've put out officially. You know what I mean? Who can forget the what's it called, like that the Titan thing, the like the Dreadnought thing. Holy shit, from Halloween. Like, why the fuck isn't that in the game? Like, that looks amazing. You want to get your game out there. It's not part of the vision, guys. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, it looks amazing. Put it in the battlefield.
To your point, it just seems like there are some activities like this that they get a lot of attention. There are other things that are neglected that are so puzzling. And so, not to digress too far, but like even weapon balance, we have certain weapons and items in the game that see essentially no use, and that could use some fine tuning a little bit. Like the shotgun and the revolver, for instance, are essentially dead weapons, except for extraordinarily silly situations. So, Why are we not tuning these things between
I think
wars?
that's the
You know what I
biggest
mean?
frustration that we have as veterans of the game is they can easily like it's just numeric values to change.
Yeah.
Like, it's not making something new to fix the problem. Is you have the problem, just tweak it internally. You know what I mean? It's just like how hard is to
It doesn't have to be right, but try.
yeah, just try
fine
and
tune
be,
something. Do it for a war and then change it for the next war.
and then and then also being what's the word being very it's coming out. I can't think about the exact word, but just be honest. I can't spit it out, but it'll come to me soon. Like shadow patching things is honestly one of the worst things. I don't mean to spiel about other random stuff, but
For sure.
adding things without telling people in the patch notes is probably one of the worst things you could ever do, and it builds a disconnection.
That's kind of why that I was saying earlier on. We're going to have to wait to see how the game plays.
Yep. 100%.
Like these guys have told us how this is going to, things are going to be. But we have no idea the numbers that have been changed behind closed doors. You know what I mean? We might pick the game up again, and storm rifles have suddenly become the meta. You know what I mean? And howitzer damage has been drastically reduced and things like that. You know what I mean?
One thing is almost certain. I'm looking forward to see this thing return for Halloween because we know, there's gonna be back for like Halloween or for some special event. There's no way it's not coming back for something like that.
And we're back. Again, that clip is from the No Man's Land Live podcast run by 82DK, I believe, twitch.tv/No Man's Land Live. Love the format, very clean and very plain spoken. Now, obviously, there's a few points to take in with that clip. Again, first and foremost, I think it's safe to say that they are aware that the unicycle is a joke, so it's not like they didn't get the joke. But their frustrations appear to lie towards a perceived disingenuousness surrounding it. Again, it's just kind of like kind of a deeper problems there, or at least perceived problems, particularly pertaining to game work going towards the wrong places or not enough work here. So I guess my first question to either of you here, both of you, how much experimentation does go into each individual war? And by experimentation, I mean changing numerical values, turning features on and off, fine-tuning some things. How much?
Well, I mean, everyone's going to have a different perspective on this. I think sometimes we change a bit too much, personally. So I don't necessarily agree that we don't change things. There's a game balance section in our release notes for our release, and in most of them, not necessarily all, but in most of them, we always we're tweaking things. Like I would bet if you pulled up all the release notes, the last over the last year, right? There's number changes in almost all of them, right? Maybe there's a couple of exceptions where we're focusing on something else. So I don't think that. Now, in terms of us like not changing a certain number, it's like I think there are times when we are, there was a question that was brought up in that stream of, well, why don't you just change something and then you can change it back? Well, I think the reality is that players are playing the game, and like if we know, for example, that we're going to be like overhauling an entire system that is related to those numbers, right? Then we don't want to put any kind of like undue stress onto players for no reason. It's just that, as an example, if Logi players, there's something that we hear all the time. The whole like partisan versus the Logi player. The Logi players think that partisans are too powerful. Partisans think that it's too hard to play as a partisan. So if we just tweak some numbers just for the sake of it, just as an example, we were like, okay, well, let's just make the watchtower. Let's just change the numbers on the watchtower so that the detection circle is larger. Then the partisans might suddenly think, well, this is not fair. This completely ruins my game. And then the Logi players will all get used to that, and then we change it back because we realize it's not right. And then now all Logi players are like, okay, the game is broken now, this and that. And if we know that we're gonna be like overhauling that whole system, let's say we knew, that whatever in 2-3 months we're going to be taking a look at that whole intelligence system. There's no point in just flip-flopping on these things. It's just going to cause extra stress for the players, right? And I think this is what happens a lot of times. Like there's like, why don't you just change this thing? Why don't you make whatever, tweak these numbers? But it's like we're going to be changing something else later, so there isn't any point to that. And I think in terms of the complaint about the us purposely not putting things into the release notes, like I think there's a couple of things that can happen there. One is that players sometimes a change has been in for a few months, but sometimes players haven't played the game for a while, so they might not realize it. I've had players come up to me and they said, "Oh, why did this thing suddenly change?" I look at the release notes from 3 months ago. I'm like, "Look, this changed from 3 months ago," and they'd be like, "Oh, I guess I didn't see that." Right? That's definitely happened before. And another thing is sometimes we just forget. Like, there's a lot of things happening. We're pushing out updates almost like every month, and like we're trying our best to get all these fixes in, all these changes in, and sometimes things are just going to slip through the cracks. And in that case, honestly, like it's our mistake. We should do like a better job at it, and we should honestly just try our best to track every single thing that is going into the game. But in that case, it's like a mistake, right? So I think those are the two reasons. But there isn't some mysterious like thing going on behind the scenes where I'm like, Max, let's just like sneak this past the players. Maybe they won't know, right? Like this is just, come on, guys. Like,
actually, I would say I want to double down on that and say actually it's the complete opposite. Sometimes we'll forget that we did some work on something. Like Anthony will just go in and add a new texture to like a tank or something, and he'll forget to make a card about it or a note anywhere. And then it's like he worked for free. It's like now nobody's even going to notice that this texture got updated, and it seems like it's actually pretty frustrating that like our patch notes could really possibly reflect this. But I think that the bigger problem, because I was aware of this from the last update, which is I think where a lot of this comes from, the black or the non patch notes or the invisible patch notes that they're referring to. It actually I think it's coming from the dev branch because the last time we did the dev branch, we iterated like 3 or 4 times, and each time we tried our best to get the patch notes in what was changed from the previous dev branch to the next one, but we're way less diligent about tracking those things because we're honestly just rifling through changes as fast as we can, trying to get the build out, and we don't always get the logs down of the things that we changed. But the reality is, once the patch notes come out from the for the actual build itself, the public ones that everybody reads, those are reflective what's changed from the previous version, not what was changed from the dev branch, which a lot of these 82DK guys who are are veterans and who are very astute in the dev branch who've tested literally everything. They see it like we're being disingenuous because we changed something and then we changed it back and then it's not in the final patch notes. The reality is we try our best to get literally every change into those patch notes. There's never any attempt to try to hide anything.
And also, I think there's like another category there that I missed, is that sometimes there might be a bug. For example, when we upgrade the engine, things sometimes shift, right? Things will shift like behind the scenes. Something changes, and we just, like we're not able to catch it. And later it's found out that that thing changed because of a bug. It wasn't an intentional thing, right? So that's sort of like the other fourth category of how that might happen. So.
Yeah, and certainly there's a degree to there's a sociological aspect as well, where if you put something in the patch notes, mentally everyone's mind will think it will like exponentially increase the values in their mind. It's like, oh, a 2% increase into armor penetration. Well, now it's like, well, everything. The reason why I lost every armor fight is because of that 2% armor penetration. I know I have fallen victim to that mentality as well, and certainly I know a lot of people that also do. But yeah, that's the price of transparency, right? Or if you miss just once, suddenly you look like you're being disingenuous. And certainly missing patch notes probably has been a thing in the past. So we'll see. We'll see. Just see in the future if all your work will be successfully documented and the huge shakeup. I think it's safe to say this upcoming update will probably be on par, if not more, than update 26, the famed logistics update that quote unquote ruined the game. And we'll see how bad this upcoming update ruins the game. But yeah, we'll see. Better for worse. Genuinely, we'll see. Better or worse. But in any case, yeah, go ahead.
If I could directly talk to those people, though, if they are listening, 82DK or anybody else who feels like we aren't logging any of those patch notes, if you do find something that you think should have been logged or was changed but wasn't, or you're not sure if it was changed, please just message us. I mean, best case, it's something we did forget to log, and we'll just log it at that point. Or worst case, it's just nothing was changed, and we can easily check.
Mm-hmm. And again, shout out to No Man's Land Live, that podcast. I'm just so happy someone is taking the time to do that, and would love to see plenty more, maybe one from a colonial perspective too. But regardless, let's get to the questions here. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of why we are here. Our first caller here tonight is Lek. Lek,
howdy.
Welcome back to Zero Dark Press Corps. How are you this fine evening?
I'm doing like I'm doing, Mr. Joffrey. How are you?
Jeffries, I forgot to ask something real quick. During the last Zero Dark, Markfoot was interested about my weather idea that I couldn't have time to fit in.
Oh, you know, we'll fit that in at the end. We'll for sure fit that in at the end. At the end here, towards the end. But Lek, do you want to get to your question here?
Hey, howdy. It's me, the train man himself. So normally I'd talk about some bullshit, or like maybe the state of the war, something. Because that's normally what's going on. But there's other stuff I plan on talking with other people about at other times. I think something that most people are interested in is, was it the last dev stream? You said something regarding a rank reset.
I think I remember that as well.
Yeah.
Mark?
Sure. So, I wouldn't worry about that too much. I don't. Honestly, I found it really funny that there was all this concern over that. Because like it's not something we're gonna be doing anytime soon.
It's not about when. That's
sure,
not the.
Sure.
But more the if.
I think at some point it's safe to say that the entire concept of the profile is going to change. So the conversation of whether it's reset or not is almost like it's almost not that relevant in my eyes, because it won't be so much of a reset. It'll probably be like an entirely new thing, right?
The question, I think the question, because
sure.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I have a bit more to add to that. So I think something that we have done in the past when we wanted to do something of a change in the way profiles are handled, we would still want to like preserve what was there in some ways. Like sort of when we transitioned from the pre-alpha, we had a medal that was given to the players that participated in that, and I think to some degree, if the profiles changed again, we'd probably want to preserve some of the history there as well, right? So
here is so I had a conversation with, I forget who it was at this exact moment, but one of the points that was said was effectively like, we both made the argument that neither of us were in favor of a rank reset, but I had said in response, you must have a good reason for why you do it. Not maybe that reason is good for you, maybe I don't accept that reason. Personally, you brought up the point regarding the medal. As much as I like the medal from the pre-alpha, it doesn't really hit the same as like actual rank in game, because most people don't check profiles, and to have a medal somewhere where most people don't go, admittedly, I'm guessing that the reason you say like, the profiles and all that, is going to get a revamp, so maybe there's going to have more functionality, so there's actually a reason to look at them. I think the reason that most people are upset is because the idea that like you put in a lot of work to get like recognition, right? And for the most part, it's not very easy to get like high ranked. And the issue with the medal versus rank is that the medal is off somewhere where you don't really see it that often, and like I already said, you probably do something like that. I don't know if you're going to, but with rank, you see that right away. You instantly know this person has a certain level of competence, or is not, or is generally less, or maybe not toxic. Maybe they're a good team player, etc. And you gain, you kind of get an expectation around what the person is subtly. I think the issue most people have with a rank reset is that all that work goes away, and you feel like all of what you did before ends up not mattering. And that's certainly the perspective I have on it myself. The question is, I suppose, then, when you do a completely different system, as it sounds like you want to, would you have a way that is more obvious and noticeable at a glance while just running around, running and gunning, when you change the way that profiles are done and the whole player individual progression system?
Yeah, I think we would do something that is, all of this, a lot of this is highly theoretical talk because it's a bit further out in the future. But I think that we would definitely, it would be a lot more than just like a medal, right? I think everything you said sounds completely reasonable to me in terms of your concerns, and I think we would take those concerns to heart. I think those are reasonable things to ask for, right? So yeah.
Just want to point out here, and I don't know if Lick had more to say, but there's a great post on Reddit by waffle_overlord8, also just known as Waffle. Great mock-up. Always love these kinds of big brain, high effort designs and suggestions. And even if I don't necessarily agree with,
could you throw a link in general for me to look at?
Yeah, sure. It's on the Reddit as well. It's got a lot of votes, but let me find it. But this is, there you go. It's in Lounge Voice List, but it's just got a lot of great suggestions for what a potential rank overhaul might look like. And looking at this, I'm thinking, if the game by 1.0, wherever that lands, but for the game at 1.0 has completely changed, the meaning of the old rank has completely changed. The work that has went into that old rank. Yeah, maybe it's time for a rank reset once we hit 1.0. Now, of course, recognize the effort that was put in before and how that comes to fruition. As you were saying, like, yeah, there's a lot of debate there. But personally, I'd be all right with a rank reset, simply because the game will have literally changed, right? The game has changed. But also, my attitude is if you were already high ranked to begin with, what's to keep you from, in the brand new reset, in the new environment, to put in that work again, the work that you will continue to do, right, with your leadership and
it's an erasing, though, is I think the issue that most people have. It's just an erasure of, well, at least most people's idea of what a rank reset entails is a complete erasure of like all that you've worked for that time. Even if that's not what draws you to Foxhole, no one can deny that it's nice to have a sort of a rank next to your name that signifies how much you've worked for whatever respective side you play on more, or if you're new, the kind of people that you hang out with, and people on both sides get to know you, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur with that, and I do think there should be some way to recognize the old, some deep, as opposed to just blanket give anyone who has purchased Foxhole before 1.0 a shiny medal saying, you were here. I think it'd have to be, personally, I think it'd have to be way deeper than that. Maybe do recognize the old rank, like,
because there are people that have just joined, put in like 3 hours. There are people that come in and they, outside of the game, they put in a ton of effort with like community events or like art and such. And then there are people that put in like 1,000 hours or something, like a couple thousand, like 2,000, and that's like me. But then there's people that are absolutely like just nutters that go crazy and they know the game super well, like Seed. Like Seed is the only one that's coming to mind immediately, but everyone knows someone like that. Oh, quite a few people in Vox actually. Now that I think about it, but. One other thing I wanted to point out, actually specifically regarding that image that you posted in general, is when you do the reset and the overhaul, please try to keep things simple, because a lot of what works in Foxhole, I think, is simple and is easily understood with limited amounts of time, but has some greater depth that you can explore if you put in the time. And when I look at that in general, it looks like it has a lot of depth to it, but it also looks overwhelming. No one, if anyone's watching this stream or listening to this after the fact, no one can see that unless you bring it up in editing or post or on live.
I have it on screen
which
right
I don't.
now. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, then they can see it. That's one thing. Another thing, actually, that I'd like to... I don't want to keep too long, because the worst thing that happens on these Zero Dark streams is when a million people sign up and then one person just stays in here for like 20 minutes or like half an hour. So I'm only going to say two more things. One was, I was on a... Do any of you have watched the Meme Hole podcast by Gresley and Wolfie?
I have not, personally. I didn't know that was a thing. Is that the Foxhole and Chill one?
No, that's something else. It's just Gresley and Wolfie talking about what their thoughts are. By their own admission, it's pretty low budget. It's just kind of them talking about things. They've had specific themes on the episodes in the past. One was like, I ended up watching one of their episodes titled Legends, and it was like, and they go over like all kinds of old players and that kind of stuff. And it's a cool nostalgia trip. But one of the things, like, they had me on as a guest in their most recent episode. I don't know if they've posted it yet. But one of the things that we talked about was the idea of they are a bit more salty vet than I am, where they still like the game. But they had a lot more negative to say. But one of the things that they said that I really sympathized with is when you go on a front line, people are quiet. It's a lot less likely that people communicate, and it's a lot less, like, there's a lot less interplayer, like, cooperation that there used to be during, like, pre-alpha and campaign days, where it was just, you rush a truck and everyone's working together and saying, like, we gotta go everyone take like 20 scraps so we don't get encumbered and go do yada yada yada. And something that I certainly can't say I disagree with is that when you go to most frontline combat, which is most of what I play, you notice that most people don't really talk a whole lot, because either because they're in Discord or because it's just kind of not something that happens much anymore. And I think what I wanted to say is, I hope that you guys in the future work, like, it's at least in the near future, and especially before 1.0. I know you said in the past you want to work on, like, interplayer features or just player interaction tools, but most of what makes Foxhole good is the player-to-player interactions, and there's certainly a lot of room for improvement and expansion there, I think.
All right. I don't know if the devs have any... Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing before I go.
Sure.
Devs didn't say anything there, but, like, I'm sure they heard it. Mark?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. But one last thing before I go, because I want to keep this short, is advertisement for Grand Prix. No, I'm not going to be talking trains. I'm going to be talking cars instead. Sign up today. I'm the guy writing the rules, so I'll be watching you. Y'all little devils gonna break the rules? Not on my watch. That's it. Just go. I think Commander Rod has a link to it somewhere. Yeah. Is it in FOD? I'm not sure.
I think it might also be in the PressCorps Discord. It should be in the FOD some. If not now, it should be. But
it should be, because I'm heavily anticipating it, because I think it's going to be really fun, like, to be a driver, and I think I'm going to have my fun just like watching people and rooting for someone.
Mhm.
Though I don't necessarily want to as one of the judges, but hey, I'll have my bias with rooting, but I won't be afraid to knock your socks off in terms of negative points. If you break my rules, that matters more to me than winning. So I don't know.
Fast
Anyway,
and Furious, Callahan's Drift. Can't wait. Lek, thank you so much for
Callahan's Drift and the Deadlands Shuffle. Everyone have a good day, or I couldn't think of something to rhyme. Goodbye.
All right. Yeah. I think rank reset. Let me just say, I don't mind. I think if you're really making a name for yourself, you'll be just fine with the rank reset. You'll quickly outpace everyone else. But in any case, moving on to our next caller here, Terrento. Thank you. Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you?
Hi. It's good to be back. And I've made a change this time. I prepared a script, so I won't stop.
Okay.
All right. Let me get the script, because I have 2 serious questions and 1 bonus small one. Just let me change something quick. Okay, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
All right. First question: do you guys have any milestones you need to achieve before feeling comfortable declaring Foxhole 1.0? When that happens, will future updates only feature ironing things out, or can we expect new stuff?
Damn, that's a really good question, Mark.
Yeah, I could take that one. So I think that first of all, when we hit 1.0, not that much is going to change. It's not going to be we go 1.0 and then suddenly the whole world is different. We're gonna not be working on Foxhole anymore. There's gonna be like an update that comes shortly after 1.0. There's probably gonna be like a winter update type thing that, like a few more months in the future after that. So it's not going to change that much. The biggest difference, there are 2 things, right? So one is we would like to reduce the frequency of like the fundamental changes that we're going to be making to the game. So we don't want to revamp the entire way that that like base building works or something, or we won't want to be like, hey, suddenly now there's no scrap in the game, it's something else. Like, we would like to not do that sort of thing as often after 1.0. So there will be a slight reduction in that sort of the experimental nature there. And then the second thing is there's all these little bits of like features that fall under the category of 1.0, which is usually associated with like the new player experience, and that's things like player profiles and features that make more sense if the game isn't fundamentally changing all the time, right? So things like localization. So it's really those 2 things. One is that we're going to be reducing the frequency of these like massive changes to the systems in the game. And then 2 is we're going to take care of all those little bits of like 1.0 things. And that's it. But to be honest, like after 1.0, it's probably not going to look that different for like a while. And I think we're just going to keep on going for the for the foreseeable future at that point. I can't say what's going to happen like many years later, because I don't think anybody can. Like, you can only see so far into the future, but the plan is basically to really not change things that much.
It makes sense. Like, you want 1.0 to be as complete as possible. So when you finally hit that, you're saying that you're not gonna expect much change, like you said, fundamental changes. But it also doesn't mean you guys are going to abandon the game. We can still expect more development.
Oh, 100%. And if you ask Max, like, he'll know what I'm talking about. Like, we're really hyped up about some of the stuff that we're going to be doing after 1.0, and we're already thinking ahead. There's like insane stuff that we can't talk about because it's just like completely getting ahead of ourselves, and we don't want to do that more than we need to. But there are big things that we still want to do. So I wouldn't even say like, oh, it's just like small things. Like there are big things that we want to do even after 1.0. But I think we would like to not, again, we just don't want to make like these, like, completely change the whole game, right? Like, that sort of thing. But we definitely going to still work on the game. There's going to be new content, new features. No worry about that. It's hardly going to look any different at first.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And I think we'll get to your other big question here, right?
Yep. The second question is, how is the development of potential clan implementation and operations? I've heard one way to bring them back is for operations to house squads instead of individual players, and then these squads having their leaders and participants, while clans replacing the squad's place. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we're definitely, so one of the big things between now and the end of the year is we do want to focus on the communication tools. That is one of the large remaining things. I guess this was another thing we wanted to do before 1.0 is sort of take care of the large parts of the game that we feel are still lacking, and I think the communication tools is one of those. So I think we would want to work on some kind of a system that's useful for clans, some sort of like more social tools that are higher level than squads are things that we probably want to look at.
It makes sense also because there are a lot of players that don't want to join squads because of the whole clanman bad thing, and they don't want to change their Steam names, and they don't want to join the Discord and all kinds of stuff. I think like not only this will bring like more communication, that is always good, but it would bring more players together. I think it would be a good incentivizer, to say the least, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and for my last question that I had time to write, before the update ships, to really emphasize the penetration, can we add an extra millimeter into the 68 shell?
Max, you want to take that one?
No, because then it would be 69, and that's inappropriate.
It'll be
if you don't make it.
It'll be bleeped out by the chat filter like escort is or was.
My name ain't bleeped out. Yeet.
There was always.
Oh god! Has PTSD to the one time I made HB talk about a Jeep dating simulator.
Is escort? Anyone answer this? Is escort still bleeped out by the? No, it isn't anymore. No. Okay, good.
We were doing during the giant Posteris op. Me and the Locks guys, we were asking for escort, or we mentioned it in the chat, and I specifically don't remember seeing it bleeped. Or else I would have sat there and been like, "Wait, what?"
All right, Terrento, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for those questions again. Good questions.
It was actually much easier for me. I didn't stutter like all the last times. Oh god.
No, it's hard. It's a skill. It's a skill.
All right. I'm expecting that 69mm one.
I think we all are now.
Okay.
Hey. All right, have a good one.
Yep.
Welcome back, Liquid Popsicle. We're back on Zero Dark PressCorps. What do you got for us here?
Wow, I think this is actually the first time I've ever been nervous. I actually wrote something down for once.
Oh wow! Okay, everyone's doing this.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, there were a couple of really big questions, really quick questions that I know a bunch of people want answered. A bunch of guys in my clan want answered. First off, there's this big question of how far the asymmetry goes. Everything's kind of vague right now. I've seen people saying, "Oh, well, it's just the silver hand and the mortar tank." And I've seen other people say, "Well, all the vehicles that we've seen so far are what we're going to get." And I'm just kind of curious. So for things like the APC with the HMG on top of it, is there going to be a Warden equivalent that will be researchable, and it's just kind of an instance of, well, depending on what your team picks, that's how it becomes asymmetrical? Or is that actually going to only be something the Colonials can make?
That particular vehicle, only the Colonials can make.
Okay, so there is, at the moment, no kind of Warden APC with any kind of armament on it?
Not right now, no.
Okay, so it's decently asymmetrical. Interesting. Second, big yes or no question. Did you guys actually make out some time to take a look into balancing mortars?
No, it's still on our list.
Oof.
Oh, but it is on the list as something you recognize.
No, it is on the list. I am you have no idea how happy I am to hear that.
But is it safe to say that it is on your list as something that does need to be balanced?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not the balancing in particular, but what we do view it as a problem that there are the mortar blobbing, or what's dubbed as mortar blobbing. We think it's actually really cool how much coordination and how much teamwork is involved in going into that, but we don't like it as a meta because it doesn't strike us as the sort of thing like you would see in a realistic scenario, and so we're not happy with it. Whether or not that gets addressed this patch is still up in the air. We have it on our list of things to discuss once the content has been finished, but I don't have any answer for you other than that.
I'll be completely honest. To me, it's something completely different. It's one person who's relatively high ranking yelling at everyone to grab mortars and stand around them, than just telling them when to fire. There's not much large scale teamwork involved, and on the receiving end, pretty much everything, every single vehicle, structure, whatever in this game can be dealt with a mortar. The mortar is the solution to everything, and that is a huge problem, and that just comes down to the amount of damage it puts out and how easy and cheap it is. And the biggest factor that is involved, it is the only item in the game that can do large amounts of damage to structures and vehicles and is blocked by line of sight because it's an infantry weapon. Anything else like the FA, the howitzer, any kind of armored vehicle like a tank, they don't get blocked by line of sight because they're vehicles. But the mortar is insanely hard to spot, and it does a ridiculous amount of damage, and it's really, really hard to counter.
I think
that is the biggest issue.
I
agree with that. Go ahead.
If you're actually skilled enough, you can actually hide FAs inside of bushes. Because their silhouette is good enough, you can actually hide like an entire FA.
The only issue with that is that the soldiers that are actually on the FA glow. They glow red because they are obstructed visually. Just like how soldiers glow inside structures and such, right? Because they are, at that point, part of the vehicle and not actual soldiers. Sure, they don't render it a decent range, but it's really easy to spot an FA that's hiding in a bush if you get even remotely close enough, because it just glows. And lastly, Mark, you made the mistake of getting the 128th excited by saying you had some big artillery plans.
Yeah.
Any kind of elaboration on that, please?
Yeah. No, I remember saying that actually. And unfortunately, what ended up happening is that we tried to get some of that into this update, but it's going to be pushed to an update that is not far after this update. But here's the good news though, is that there's going to be more to it. Like, our original plan was that we were going to add new content, and maybe change a couple of small things, but we have like larger plans for it now. So that's, if there's a silver lining there, it is that. But the long and short of it is, we made plans for it, we started working on it, and then we just didn't have enough time, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. That's very understandable.
Believe it or not, this happens like more often than not, that like we have a cool idea for something and then we start implementing, and then we start to dream up all these other really cool ideas to like make it better, and then we realize we don't have time to do that, and then it's a decision of doing the lesser version or waiting and doing the one we want to do. And in this case, I think it's more of the latter.
And the very last thing that I want to talk about, which was very sad for me, a close friend of mine who's part of ASS, there was so much partisan pressure on him dealing with maintaining a storm cannon base, because as it stands right now, You know, there. I have to say, some absolutely beautiful steps in the right direction with the storm cannon. The range, beautiful. The inaccuracy, absolutely amazing. That's exactly what I'd love to see in artillery. In my opinion, it still does a wee bit too much damage. I really don't like the power system. I feel like the fire rate, the loading animation should take a good 15 to 20 seconds. That should be the determining factor of how fast you can fire, and not a power system. And last but not least, it takes way too long to build. Right? If you want to set up a storm cannon from scratch, it takes you a solid week and a half. And that entire week and a half, either your bunker is sitting there pretty much undefended so that it looks unassuming, so that partisans don't go blow it up, or you are sitting there and dealing with partisans the entire time, or you are really deep in the back line where it's going to be next to useless. And on top of that, the upgrade part requirement, very intense. Only thing is, what I would love to see, 500, 750 meter range artillery, right? If you can hear where it's firing from, if you can hear where it fires, it is really easy to track down and counter. Just like the Colonial SC and the Colonial Storm Cannon that was in Deadlands. We knew where it was because we could hear where it was firing from. And we got a whole bunch of randoms together and almost took it down because they didn't defend it very well. But it's not difficult to counter if it's not overly built, which is why in my eyes, something like the Storm Cannon should be about a 6-hour setup and a 2-hour counter. That way, you're not sitting here where a week and a half worth of work is either taken down overnight while you're trying to actually get some sleep, or is taken down by a large group that you feel powerless to stop. And you can go in and you can enjoy that kind of gameplay. And I know a lot of people that I've talked to, the Storm Cannon doesn't actually have that much impact unless it's in the ideal conditions. Most of the time your team just builds through it. And lowering the fire rate drastically would make it very easy to build through, right? It's still absolutely terrifying being on the receiving end of. You don't know where that shell's going to land. You don't know if you're going to get erased. That's incredibly fun. But it's so rare, so difficult to set up, so difficult to counter. That part is not fun. That is the only issue with the Storm Cannon. It's just it's too big, right? The whole idea of having larger scale artillery is great, but when you have this huge, massive undertaking that gets locked by squads that can't be used, and then something happens and it would need to be used by randoms or something, right? And it's sitting there squad locked because the power system is in the game, and if it's not squad locked, someone's going to abuse it, then you can't use it. And it just gets run over because it can't react because the people that are in charge of it are offline, trying to sleep, dealing with real life issues. Let's say like the launch site, the nukes, great. They work fantastic. But with the Storm Cannon, it's too much of an active item to be locked down to bunkers the way it is. It needs to be set up faster. It needs to be easier to counter. It needs to do a little bit less, right? I still think it's a bit on the strong end. As far as I can see, it would be a lot more fun if it was something that you set up and then you start firing and then the enemy gets really pissed off at you for it, and 40 minutes later, here come 3 light tanks or a battle tank out of nowhere and just run you over. That is cool. The dealing with partisans coming in at 2 a.m. with a bunch of smoke grenades and satchel charges to PvE it while you're offline, that is not fun. That is incredibly frustrating. It's painful for us, the builder. It's painful for the frontline soldier that feels powerless to do anything about it. The only person I think that really enjoys that kind of gameplay is the partisans.
That's a lot there. But you're absolutely right. That's tough because, and I'll let KFC talk next. But I'm just saying that that's such a problem that since a tale as old as MMOs, right? Is that you leave something overnight. Like, how do you know if it'll be there tomorrow? And some games do it in that, okay, you literally cannot cause damage to this thing. But though, I don't think that's the way we want to go. And also,
keep in mind, I'm not expecting the moon, right?
Right,
This
absolutely.
I understand how difficult it is to actually get something in the game like this to work right, and honestly, I'm just happy it's in the game.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love,
for sure.
especially with the sound mod I made for it. It's beautiful. It's amazing to see in combat. It's so gratifying to fire and so gratifying to aim. It's just, it's not worth the pain of setting up.
Max,
it's really not. It
respond?
wears me down.
Oh, not so much as other than to say that we agree with you. I mean, it needs some work. There's a number of problems with it from both directions, both the partisans' perspective as well as the artillery perspective, as well as the amount of work that goes into it, as well as the clan versus public perspective that only clan members can build it versus only public members never get a chance to fire it. There's problems with the ammo being inaccessible when you lose the advanced ammo factory. There's all kinds of problems with it. So yeah, we're looking at it.
That's such
it was a brilliant experiment, though. Absolutely brilliant, and I love you for it. Because I understand how much of a risk it was, and I understand the amount of effort that went into it, and the fears and everything. Oh, this is going to be overpowered. Oh, what if no one likes this? And a lot has been learned. I think everyone can agree that a lot has been learned. And even though it's not perfect, I'm still very, very happy because there are a select few things that are absolutely amazing. And I cannot stress this enough. When a storm cannon is firing in the same region as you, and you hear it fire, and you know it's aimed in your general direction, it is terrifying when you don't know where that shell is going to land. And that is insanely fun being on the receiving end of.
For sure. Liquid, thank you so much for your time. Did you have anything else here for us?
There was one more thing on my list, which was the armor system and the deflection, but it's one of those things where we don't know,
right?
And I don't want to take up all the time to ask them to describe everything. The dev branch is going to come out in a couple days, and we'll get to figure it out on our own. And on top of that, I'm sure the community previews that we're getting from our content creators are going to showcase a fair bit of that. It's just I don't know. I'm really excited. Even though there's no big artillery stuff this update, I'm happy to see that tanks are finally becoming modular. We're getting all these different kind of variants. I'm really, really excited to see an asymmetrical battle because now I might actually be able to convince people to play the other side for once and experience the whole game rather than being so loyal, which isn't a bad thing. But I feel like there's finally going to be a whole other side to the game that you can experience just by changing teams. It's like you have two games in one.
All right, Liquid, thank you so much. Appreciate you stopping by.
I appreciate being on here. Have a good night, everybody. See you later.
Real quick, just one more thing. I just gotta ask. Why is the tankette classified as an armored car? It's a tankette, not an armored car.
That's a great question. I really hope you get into the dev branch and you can find that.
All right. Well, Crazy Frog 443, welcome back to Zero. I think if you've been here on the show before, I think you have. Well, either way, sorry, I might have cut you off.
No, I have not.
That's fine. Well, welcome to Zero Dark Press Corps. Did you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the upcoming summer update or the previous war? Also take stories as well. Go for it.
So, I've been playing a lot of tank combat. I'm a part of Siege. It's really been what I've been mainly doing. And I've had a few questions about how the modular system would work, and basically how your guys' thoughts on how the tank system you guys want to look. And basically just how sorry, I didn't write anything down. This is pretty much out of my head. How is the system essentially going to work?
What do you mean, what system?
Like, for the modular system, is it going to be like you press F and you go into the upgrade mode, and then you can basically choose what upgrades you want, like if you tech it or not? Or is it going to be more of like you go to a factory and you build it that way?
Yeah, so it's like it's the system is modular in the sense of the way that like we built them. We basically came up with a new pipeline that allows us to assemble new vehicle types much easier than we did before. So if you actually look at our blog from 2 weeks ago, we talked about this. And how it's going to work is um, each war players will be presented with a research tree, and in this research tree, players are going to be choosing between um, which vehicle variants they want to become the main research vehicle for their faction for that war. And then once that's researched, then you move on to the next one, and you make a new choice. What's the next choice that we're going to be making? Do we want to research this armored car or that armored car, or maybe even like another vehicle type? And that's basically how it works. So it's not going to be players themselves, taking different parts and like putting them together or anything of that sort.
Also, another question I had is, will there be any more different types of game modes to come out in the future? Like after each war, how there's like the resistance phase or any of those things. Are you guys planning on adding more game modes like that, or are you guys just completely on this update? You guys haven't really thought about it too much.
Yeah, we're probably not gonna work on any other game modes in any kind of foreseeable future, because we really don't want to spread ourselves thin, and we want to focus on world conquest.
Yeah, I can understand that.
First and foremost, and really just try to make that mode like the best it can be. So.
And my last question here, because I don't want to take too much time. Do you guys plan on making the what's it called? Do you guys plan on adding more to the
construction or vehicles?
Yeah, construction, and how like new different ways of constructing things in that sense. Like shoot. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. Yeah, get caught in the crosshairs. Trust me. Doing PressCorps, I find myself in that position all the time. But in terms of like how to make new structures, but also because what's the current way right now? It's you got the trenches with the shovel. You've got structures with the hammer and the crane. Is there any other way, to my knowledge? Because I'll fully admit I've been kind of out of the game for a couple of months now, busy with other things. But yeah.
Have you guys thought about adding like any, like say a jackhammer, like a blowtorch that will heal tanks or any armored vehicle faster? But like a hammer is like obviously the cheapest, and it's not as hard to get. Or like a jackhammer is better at destroying like bunkers and like basically just removing things.
Yeah, so I think something that we want to take a look at is these activities that players are doing sort of like over and over again, sort of like the moment-to-moment type things, like the driving and like the mining and like the building. We want to look for ways to make those activities more fun when you're doing it over the long term, right? And I think the vehicle physics is us doing that for the driving game. I think that for the building, it's something we have to take a look at, and we haven't started looking at that yet. But I think we'd want to try to explore some things there to sort of like break up the activity of building a bit more. And I think in terms of adding in new tools, I'm excited about that idea. I think it's really cool. I think the question that we always ask ourselves with sort of the introduction of a new tool, like maybe like a jackhammer or maybe like a drill or something. I don't know, right? With those sorts of things, we have to ask ourselves, how do we add it into the game in a way that is interesting and doesn't just become this sort of like flat like upgrade? Like, okay, now you have a tool, it's better, but all that does is at some point in the game when it's research, you're just going to be replacing all the hammers with this new tool. I think what's far more interesting is if it actually did something different or a way that changes the game instead of it just sort of being like a flat upgrade. So I think if there are ideas out there on how that can be done, we'd be interested in hearing about them, because it is an exciting concept. It's just not quite sure yet how that would fit into the game.
Yeah, and it's really been a thought of mine for a while, and I didn't really know how else you could really say that. Sorry, I'm really tired. I haven't really gotten a lot of sleep recently. I've been doing a lot of stuff.
That's fine. You've been scrapping, I'm sure. But Crazy, do you have anything else for us? Any closing remarks here?
I just wanted, for my last, little bit, I'm just basically just excited on how the modular system is going to work, and basically what your guys' ideas are in the future on how everything is going to work.
Thank you. That's cool.
Thanks, man.
All right, Crazy Fog, thank you so much. Hope to see you next time and out in the field too. All right, well, our next caller here is supposedly Browniemeister, but I don't think he's in the chat. So we're going to go to WARCORP here. WARCORP, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Oh god, the 4chan invasion.
Spots, we're not talking about that today. I'd actually like to talk about something else. Individual small arms for specific factions.
I think we'd all like to see that.
Yeah, you wanna like a spitball there, because I think that is something Markfoot. I think that's something Markfoot kind of softly confirmed earlier, since we already opened the floodgates with faction-specific vehicles. Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise to see faction-specific weapons as well. So, WARCORP, did you have anything in mind, or maybe Mark and Max?
Maybe for a Colonial Rifle, you could combine an M1 Garand with the Carcano Rifle, and for the Warden Rifle, you could mishmash some rifle up together.
The Mosin Nagant, or the Lee Enfield and the Car 98.
I mean, I don't see why not. You could combine any variation of rifles and light machine guns. Honestly, I saw a while back. I actually saw a design for an SMG, and I thought the Colonial SMG would actually fit better with the Warden, since the stun gun and British and all the lore and all that. You know how the Wardens are actually supposed to be Gaelic, Irish, Celtic type cultures, and the Colonials are supposed to be Greek, Greco-Roman, if I were to describe it like that. So I also thought a Moss 38 would fit with a Thompson stock. Would actually fit best for the Colonial SMG, for example. And maybe some combination of the Sten gun and the grease gun would also be nice.
And as well as that, possibly the MP40.
I already said.
You said grease gun.
We kind of do have the MP40 already.
Yeah, the normal
have an
SMG pretty much is an MP40. I say we just give that to the Wardens, keep them with that.
Yeah, also for individual revolvers, it would actually be nice to see on one side for the Wardens the what is that revolver? There's a British revolver.
The Webley?
The Webley?
The Webley, yeah. Thank you.
Dude, that'd be such a cool reload animation. Just break it down, pop a new cylinder in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of already what happens. But I mean, regardless, we could go on brainstorming.
You could call the Colonial Rifle the Phalanx, for example.
Well, that's a good one.
Oh, you were right.
That's a good one.
Right.
But we could keep on going spitball, and I honestly would love doing that. But I guess Mark and KFC, I'll follow up with a kind of different angle here, which is, are there any concerns that perhaps once you have opened the floodgates, which you're about to do in the next coming weeks, that, well, if you have so many variants, potentially hundreds of variants, as well as different between the factions, it's not going to be a balanced nightmare because you already have so many things here with equal factions. You've already have like the sociological differences and the terrain differences, the geographic differences. Yeah, you're opening up the floodgates.
Jeffrey, you know the law of physics. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's just gonna balance out. If you give the players customization, they'll figure a way to balance it out. Like you give a heavily armed tank, you just build a tank destroyer that'll just defeat the armor, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Wardens will find a way, the Colonials will find a way.
Yes.
And it'll all bounce out naturally.
So,
in my opinion.
My answer is that, yeah, it is going to be very challenging, and to some degree, it is a very scary thing. But I think that if it's going to help us reach our goals, if it's going to make the game feel more like you're part of like an actual war, it's going to be worth it.
I feel like it would be more so if there were faction-specific firearms, like the Carcano Garand mix, the Phalanx. I don't know.
I feel like there would just be so many people who literally have the only goal of, hey, let's get as many battle trophies and take them and display them as possible. And honestly, I find that as really cool.
Honestly, I don't know if there's a Latin word for rifle, but no, I don't think there is.
I mean, just take the Greek word for rifle.
All right. Yeah, and you put the first letter, and then it would be like a certain number, like 36, 38, 4, 5, whatever.
So you're going with the Gewehr kind of strategy there, like the Gewehr 43, Gewehr 90.
Rather than M1 Garand type back rifle. Let's see.
Well, no, I mean naming scheme, because that's how they would do their stuff, like G43s, yada yada yada.
Who names these? Who names all these variants in
maybe
devlog?
A T4 Phalanx rifle that would fit nicely, actually.
It's Matt. Matt does it.
Okay, so Lore Master Matt does name all the variants. All right, that's good to know. WARCORP, did you have anything else here for us? Any other big questions here?
Other than future, I mean, there could be potentially what about future of naval warfare, because I love me some nautical shenanigans, so to speak.
Don't you mean nautical nonsense?
No, it's nautical shenanigans.
Okay.
Like things to do with maybe a destroyer or a light cruiser type vehicle, but downscaled, so to speak.
Yeah, there's definitely scaling involved, so we won't see like an aircraft carrier that'll take up half the map. But
yeah, you'll never see a full-scale heavy cruiser battleship in Foxhole.
Yeah, but
that's never gonna do.
But that's a great question, Mark KFC, because I mean, there is so much potential. We've already opened up the potential even more, having redesigned the world map to allow for more waterway travel. There's got to be more there to naval combat, certainly.
Yeah, Mark, what about naval?
Put in the call queue a document about POW camps. That sounds a
well. Hold on. That's the next caller's question, so we'll answer that there. But WARCORP, did you have anything else for us?
Other than that, I think we're good. See you guys.
All right. Hey, WARCORP, thank you so much. I just wanted to say his excitement is palpable and extremely infectious, and I can't wait either. All right. I'm sorry, Max, did you want to say something?
No.
I'm just sitting here thinking about my big old Foxhole battleship with the biggest cannons. Just be like, hey, Jade Cove, kaboom!
Oh my goodness, it's kind of fortunate that we haven't had a Jade Cove level situation. Fortunate and also unfortunate, but also fortunate.
Actually, Jade Cove made the press.
Fortunate for everyone's sanity.
Yeah.
Long story short, we did have another Jade Cove again. That happened a little bit while ago. Go, and I'm monitoring the internet, and some people are planning to do a J-Code Part 3.
Well, we'll see. But in any case, so I don't think Browniemeister is not in the chat that I can see. Neither is MREBoy from 82DK. They were on the list. But okay, then we'll just skip down to vonklaus.
Let's pull in all Warden Navy, actually. Let's pull in all Warden Navy.
Oh, okay, so yeah, that makes sense.
Vaughn is gone, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wait.
Hello.
I don't know.
I just want to say this is, I think, going to be Mark's last question because we got to get going.
Oh, we do? Okay.
I can't. Oh no, I didn't talk about my weather idea.
Spots. I'll give you some time at the end to talk about it on stream. But Mint, vonklaus, who else should I be bringing in here? I guess Adrik.
Jerry and Adrik.
There goes. Oh, hey.
I think that's it. Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay. Time to be
Hey
civilized.
guys, how's it going tonight?
Going well.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, I got a question. Will there be a gunboat variant with the FMG in the back and a gun in the front?
Like the old gunboat. Missed that one.
Yeah.
There might be, but not yet.
No, I don't want vague answers. Real answers.
No,
Come on.
man.
Come on, do it.
Civilized men. Civilized men.
Shut up, Jerry.
You'll want for this update. No, not for this update.
Fine.
So I remember, yeah, because one time we were talking about maybe there being like a 40 millimeter boat. Is there going to be like a 40 millimeter variant to any of the gunboats? And are there going to be like a difference? I know there's going to be a difference between the land units, but is there going to be a difference between the gunboat variants?
So we're probably, this is probably not the answer you guys want to hear, but probably like in the next couple of updates, there won't be too much focus on the water vehicle variants. So it's still like we want to focus on land vehicles first. For this upcoming update, there is going to be the gunboat variant that we showed, and that will be for the Wardens, and that's going to be the only variant for at least a couple of updates.
Really?
Okay. All right. Well,
Okay.
that's not bad. I mean, that's fair. Okay. Are the subsystems going to operate the same, like on water? Like I know there's going to be an APC, so it'll have like subsystems, but when it gets in the water, will those be affected the same way?
Water vehicles right now won't have any subsystems, no.
But the APCs, like let's say the APC, will it have subsystems when it's on land? Will it can its tracks get knocked off or whatever, like the tanks like heavy you guys have described or whatever?
So right now, we have, so the subsystems are going to be on all the tanks, and they're going to be on most of the track combat vehicles, but there's a couple that system hasn't made it to yet, and the APC, I think we're still taking a look at that, so I can't say one way or the other.
Actually.
Oh, maybe there's an update that I didn't know about.
Yeah, I can. The APCs. So, like you were just saying, some of these vehicles, the tanks have all the subsystems. So the turret, the track, and the engine. Some vehicles will have not all of them, but will have some of them. And I can say that the APC does have at least one subsystem. But again, I think you guys need to take a look at it in Dev Branch before, getting your hopes up, because there's that'll raise more questions. You'll want to know.
Okay, no, I just didn't know if they could be disabled on the water just by chance. If that was like a thing that was going to be coming up or whatever. I like killing APCs, so any positive information is good. Is there going to be any unique small arms or anything like that coming up, or is that other than the Volta?
No, that's not something that is coming soon. I think that was mentioned a couple times in the stream, but not for this update and not for the next one either. But who knows?
Let me give
Is there any plans?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you.
I was just going to say a hot take that personally, naval combat will not be fully realized until there is a proper ship-to-ship anti-ship weapon. Right now you have the FM, kind of the machine guns on one side. That's fine, whatever, for close encounters. And you do have artillery. But that's just far too finicky and kind of ridiculous for at least ship-to-ship combat.
What you think? You don't know what we do with them.
I know. But until like there is direct fire ship-to-ship weaponry, I don't think naval combat on a wide scale. Certainly, Warden Navy's probably expertise on it by now, but I don't think on a wide scale that's not going to happen until there's proper direct fire, with very big caveats, of course, to balance it out. But I don't think that's going to happen until that happens.
Direct fire is too easy. Give us indirect fire.
I was going to ask about the.
I was in a operation with Locks, and we found this random Warden gunship just parked up by the shore. It was locked, of course, but we had an APC. We were just looking around like, okay, let's partisan a few towers. And someone says, hey, there's a gunboat down there. And we said, what? So we go down, we investigate it, we steal it, load it up with shells, go to Jade Cove, and we're like, let's hit the tower. And then all of a sudden, so we go there, we fire, we almost get RPG'd, so we start walking away. I guess floating. Then all of a sudden, a bunch of cannons start hitting us, and the only people I could think of was Port and Navy just found us.
That's normally me then. I'm the one.
There was just a bunch of indirect fire on us, and I was like, oh god.
Were you the ones repairing in the harbor at Jade
Yeah,
Cove?
we were the ones who had the two.
There you go. That's yours, Jerry.
Yeah, that's another one.
See, beforehand we had two colonial gunboats. We were repairing them in Victa.
Y'all normally leave your stock on a Victa, and it's very nice to blow up.
Yeah, well, we were there occupying it, and then we had an APC roll up, and they had RPGs, and so we got rid of them. They did some damage, so we're repairing, and then every time we were about to head out, a boat would come up and try and sticky one of them or something, and then an APC rolled up and sticky both of them, and we just said, all right, well. It was a bit of an understatement to say we were a bit angry.
Is there gonna, on a side note, does anyone know, specifically the devs, just to clear this out, is there gonna be a damage buff to APCs with this FMG? Because it's like, I understand that the AT rifle is like a smaller caliber, but it's like meant for anti-vehicle, it's anti-material rifle. But like the FMG like caliber is bigger than it. And
it has no AP, yeah.
It has no AP in it, but it just, you have to spend more than 10 mags. That's 100 bullets onto a APC, and it still won't disable or take any damage. You would think like maybe it would leak or something, but that's not a mechanic yet. Or also the ammunition on the front gun of this thing can only hold 100 bullets, and the FMG normally on land holds 200 bullets, so you get cheaped out of 100 bullets, and also the ammo is relatively expensive for BMATs.
Yeah, I agree. The APC is a little bit strong right now, but the reason why I'm reluctant to answer questions like this, and as well as the one about the subsystems for APCs, is because we actually have a bunch of community members, community streamers, and community YouTubers going through all the vehicles right now, and we will hopefully have content available for you guys to sort of ask them about how these vehicles work, and get your questions answered by them, as opposed to getting it from us. So hopefully by tomorrow around noon, there should be a number of players who are going to stream some of these vehicles. There should be some YouTubers with some videos to release, which I'll announce on FOD. And you guys will literally be able to go in there and ask them directly, like, what is this? How does this work? And then when you get your answers there, with a big disclaimer that if you think something is broken, it's not final. Like, let's have a conversation about it once Dev Branch comes out and everybody has a chance to get their hands on it, and we can tweak things as necessary. But from the perspective of the live game right now, yes, APCs are a little bit strong.
Yeah, I just want to double down on what you said there, Max. That whatever you do see in these streams tomorrow is extremely work in progress. So like, for sure, ask your questions, you get them answered. But like, if there's certain things, I just want to like stress this, right? Like, it's not time yet to hone in on certain things, and because some things are just completely broken. They're just like, it's This is probably the earliest we've ever shown features to players before a release. So just sort of, I just want to stress that point. That's all. Highly work in progress.
All right. Okay.
Can I?
Developer. Oh yeah, you go, Adrik. It's fine.
For a game with such emphasis on team play and combined player efforts, we have very bare-bone command and communication features. What do you think about adding things like map drawing, different pings like attack, defend, builds, and more customizable advanced map posts and logistic orders maybe?
That would be cool.
Yeah, I think all those, I think most of those things you mentioned, we probably want to take a look at. As I mentioned, between now and the end of the year, we do want to. That's sort of the next big thing that we do want to look at is the communication tools, because what we have right now is too raw for 1.0. So I think I love the map post idea, being able to put down different have different tools there, and yeah, there's a whole bunch that can be done.
So have any of the, anyone on the developer team, have you guys, ever actually been in a gunboat engagement on the water?
Yep.
You guys have? Have you guys fought, APC to gunboat or gunboat to APC? That kind of stuff?
I think they're asking, have you fought them?
Oh, no. It's just, general engagements, not us.
You want to fight me, bro?
Sure. Now that would be fun to see. I'd pay to see that if I had money.
No, because it's you understand why the HMG APC could potentially be very, very, it could up APCs from already being great to being almost overpowered.
Yep.
Because most engagements are where the APC's behind the gunboat and chasing it. If there's a 50 cal on the APC constantly shooting the gunboat, I mean, if a pistol can do 1% damage to a gunboat, what can an HMG do?
Yep, we are aware of that issue.
Okay, there you go.
We'll make this the last question from you guys here.
Oh, okay. Are you aware of the issue that the Colonial gunboat can fire 5 more meters than the Warden one, just due to the height of the cannon on the back? How high, it is from the from the water. It's higher than the Warden one, which gives it a advantage of shooting farther.
Well, then it's a good thing when we have asymmetrical factions now, huh?
Oh yeah.
Were you actually aware of that?
That's balanced out by how much cooler the Warden gunboat looks. That's the balancing factor there.
And it was too fat to get through the bridges at Spearhead. Not at Spearhead, but at Saltbrook. But that was fixed.
No, but was that?
I believe that actually did come up during the initial testing with the gunboats, and it was deemed a minor issue at the time. But yeah, I was sort of half joking, but half being honest. I'm glad that we're doing asymmetrical factions now, especially when you look at things like the subsystems. You'll start to realize that what you see is what you get. Turrets, just because the light tank or the Colonial light tank and the Warden light tank were built at the same time, it doesn't mean that their turrets are going to have the same hitbox. Obviously, the turrets look very different, and their hitboxes are also similarly going to be very different. And so, very similarly with these gunboats, if there's a turret that's a little bit higher up, it maybe will shoot 5 meters farther. That's what we want with the game from this point forward. Is we don't want you guessing. We want you to see a vehicle. We want you to analyze how it looks and what you think its weaknesses are, and that should be intuitive.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. There's 2 directions here this goes. That one, everyone will be like, you know what? That's how it should be. Let's work around that. Alternatively, people will go, oh, there's an imbalance here. Let's figure out 10 ways we can rebalance everything else to make sure that this problem is fixed. you know what angle I'm coming from? It's kind of like fix logi. Well, okay. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens when everything gets deployed. We'll see how horribly unbalanced things will be, right?
Number 50 on the pipeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Gunboat's too fat.
Well, Warden Navy,
I think that's all the time me and Markfoot have.
Yeah, I did have one more question because I did skip them, and this is from MREBoy, which is, given the probable increase in water logistic traffic that will be coming up, will the current smaller shipyards potentially get a permanently emplaced crane added to them in order to make them more efficient and usable. So this is smaller shipyards, permanent cranes, embedded in cranes.
I think it's a good suggestion. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to make it into this update, but I do like the suggestion. I think it makes sense.
All right.
And it's a shame that I couldn't talk about my weather suggestion to the devs.
No joke, Spots. I'll let you talk about it right now, and then I think we gotta let the devs go though, back to their families. But Mark, KFC, thank you so much for your time. Duly appreciated as always here for clocking overtime. Take time with the community.
Thanks a lot for having us on the stream. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
For sure. Have a good one. All right, Spots. Got the weather idea. I know Mint and Vonklaus want to hang around for this. And you know what? This was a slightly shorter one, so we'll go through a few more calls. Obviously, we're not the devs, but we'll just hear people out here. Again, it's completely dependent on their personal schedules. But Spots, why don't you go up with your weather idea? What'd you have for us? And as always suggest writing this down and posting it somewhere.
Right. This idea for the weather system is a problem around the idea of 1.0. We need more randomness. Randomness is a big factor in warfare. Take for example D-Day. D-Day was planned to be on June 4th, but was delayed due to the weather not being perfect. Because it was a massive naval operation, something that was a definition of massive. And the weather must have been perfect for the mission, or it might have failed. So weather should affect how we should do pushes and how people play. Like, take for example, it starts to rain. The lower tier roads, aka tier 1, and possibly if it rains hard enough, tier 2 roads will become muddy, which will make them harder to drive through. But certain vehicles like tanks, APCs, and certain four-wheel vehicles will ignore that, while other vehicles might get slowed down in the mud or even get stuck in it.
I'll say this. Because there's kind of an innate visceral reaction to more RNG things, particularly something that could weigh down the already enormous cost and effort of vehicles, which is that if you're gonna implement something like that, have it be for the entire world at once. Because I can already imagine, like, hey, it rained down in Veli, but it's totally fine in Siva, and then like, oh geez.
As well as that, I want to see seasons be added. Like,
oh no.
Like during the game, seasons will slowly but surely change. So certain parts of the map during like take for example, it's winter in one part of the map.
It already is.
I suggested this a while ago, a special change. Before I go, it was to add seasons to the game, but I explained how to do it. So the southern regions, because there's more trees and more shrubbery and stuff like that, it would sort of become like autumnish weather.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be less foliage. The trees would either have almost no leaves on them or have like colorful autumn leaves. And in the north, like this would be in winter. So the south wouldn't be as cold, so there wouldn't be no snow in the south. It would just be like autumn. And in the north, the snow would it would wait a minute. Oh no, it'd be colder in the north, so it'd be winter in the north.
Mm.
And then when it switches to summer, the south becomes like a lot of foliage, and the north would have like rocks, because like the snow would melt and stuff, and it'd be very rocky, and everyone would chill underneath it, and
Actually, I want to continue about my suggestion. My idea is for those seasons is that it goes by in-game days. Like, take for example, a war starts on a certain day. Most likely, take for example, when the war ends, the war we ended, and the season will continue on until the next war, which will add something like a continuation effect between each war. So okay, this war ended in spring. Next war might. Now we need to do some calculations to figure out. Okay, the next war will be starting in early summer, so that means better terrain for better optics for. We know that it's gonna be nice and warm, and in some parts of the map will be better to drive in.
Real quick, I'm loving this chat right now. I absolutely love it. Can someone hunt this furry and put him to sleep? Won't someone please stop Spots? Stop. Oh my god. Dude, this man needs to go. Play Warden, you dick. It's all snow. It's shite. It's just...
That's gas, man.
Well,
That's
all
gas,
I have
man.
to say,
I
all
love
have
it.
to say is I will gladly hunt him down free of charge. Just give me a shout.
I love it. I love telling always telling people Spots to shut up. Spots, continue.
I mean, he's just a
do it right now, and I think you should let Mint take over for a little bit.
He's just across the basement. I mean, I'm staring at him from Jeffrey's basement right now. I mean, he's just over there.
Spots, continue. No, Spots. Spots, go on.
Well, but as well as that with the season.
You don't have to, though. I mean, you can.
No. The people are loving this. Go for it.
Sorry, it's just a second.
No, I'm going to stop.
Oh, all right.
Twitch at one.
Here. No, I will continue on the idea. If you had to do the calculations for those winters or those summers based on what days those vehicles come out, wouldn't that mean that it would go hand in hand with this variation of vehicles? Because it would matter thus what time you get those vehicles depends on what kind of tracks you have on your tanks, your ACs, or whatever vehicle you're running with. Because let's say during the summer up north, it's swampy because all the snow is melting, which means that you gotta have lighter pressure per square inch for your tanks, which means you get bigger tracks. You get bigger tracks or something, which means that you won't get bogged down to this mud. You're not slowed down.
Idea just popped into my head. What if for the natural occurring, let's say the center, the middle regions are more or less kind of neutral, but maybe like the north, they got a lot of snow and all the problems there, and in the south they get a lot of mud. Well, I guess that's also snow, but or like rather the problems with snow as well. But regardless, what if for the south, total spitball here. If the weather will adversely affect wardens more if they're invading the southern regions, like weather will, but the colonials will. It'll still affect them, but because they're more adept to that weather, it's 20% less negative effects of mud. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
That's the same thing in Hoi 4. You spawn your troops in one area. They're from Italy. They're used to the warm Mediterranean. You send them to. Let's say you're fighting the Russian front at whatever time it is.
Oh god, it's cold.
And it's cold. You have an accumulation ratio to where you will slowly accumulate to it, but it's the fact that you are hit with a debuff for as long as the time it takes for it to accumulate. The way you can adversely go around this is by having the right gear, as in there's some snow gear to research for winter that take away that debuff slightly, or you have almost desert gear in case you're fighting in the desert, which will help you if you're fighting against the debuff and the desert, which would be the change for. That would also help for variation if you're going to go for asymmetrical factions. That's also would be the same idea if you had ghillie suits. There's a green one for collies. There's a white one for wardens. You hide based on what terrain you're from. And you can put that. There's an open.
All right, see you.
See you,
Gary, I'll leave you to talk for WN.
I do want to kind of switch gears here to Kettle. Kettle, unfortunately, was kind of cut off at the end there because the devs had to scram. Again, Kettle, I do want to apologize, as to everyone who always gets cut off and lost in the queues.
Just get here quicker.
Just because I know you stayed up late to try and get your question in. We're completely at the mercy of personal schedules of the developers and their overtime hours. But Kettle, what did you have for us? We're not the devs, but maybe we can provide some comfort.
Yeah, I was here to actually plant a seed. If we are going for asymmetry, the alt accounts will be a problem, but not if we start with asymmetrical buildings, because what are alt accounts going to do? They can steal buildings.
Yeah, didn't you know you just rip it off the foundation, place it on a truck, and tell it to go?
Yeah, I was going to ask if that is something that they would consider, but they didn't stay, so no big deal. Maybe some other people will.
So you would actually you would say so you said asymmetrical buildings, structures.
Yeah, faction specific would be better.
Not just aesthetic, but in terms of how they operate.
Yeah.
You see, so now we're really getting into RTS territory, right? So this is just straight up RTS, which has been a comparison that has been long established between Foxhole and other RTS games like Company of Heroes, StarCraft, any RTS game really. Only the difference is you control every single unit is a player. You could say the same thing about PlanetSide as well in that concept, but yeah, wow, we're going all in on that concept and
down the rabbit hole.
We really are, and part of me hates it. Like, this is just me personally speaking. Part of me hates it because now you're going to open up to, because I should say I always go back to PlanetSide. That's the game that made me for 4 years. But to this day, people on other factions will be like, well, we inherently always have the disadvantage because their weapons are just naturally this way as opposed to our weapons, which are naturally this way. And it's just impossible to balance and whatnot. But then again, you say the same thing. You could easily say the same thing about Foxhole right now, because the geography is naturally different. I would say balanced. Immediately, people are going to shoot me on sight for that. But I would say somewhat degree of balance, and also just how the factions are. I would say the big thing, however, is how the factions are. Because I wonder if you've considered this, Kettle, and I know you were coming at it from the alting problem degree, which is certainly a more than a valid take on it. But I would say, are we also losing something as well in the player freedom? And I kind of hinted at this earlier, though. I think the devs kind of maybe danced around this or just didn't recognize the question. Are we kind of losing something with how the players drive and the culture of the players drive how things are played out?
Yeah, I think you're correct, but just to ease people in, they could make it so that they introduce asymmetry via buildings, not with vehicles, because people will alt account and they will just try to get a vehicle from the other side that they like, and maybe to mess some stuff up while at it. I don't know.
Yeah, let's bring a few more voices in here since we're all shooting the shit. Let's bring in a couple more, and then we'll cycle them in and out.
That's funny for me because they'll never understand it.
Sorry.
There's one asymmetrical thing I will have to point out that's really big. It's for anyone who holds Jacob.
Oh no.
Right.
There's from Husk Hollow to the Apollo's area in northern Jacob, there is a rock pass which you can climb to get into that place at Apollo's Landing, and you can satchel all those G houses. You can slowly satchel the entirety of all those G houses by hopping down there, because there's no G house that stops it, and you can't build defenses because it's rocks. And it's if you go from Husk Hollow to Apollo's, and it's a passageway if you just follow the coast, essentially.
Well, thank you for telling me about that.
Yeah, and I'm making sure every person's gonna know, because they use the Colonials used it a lot, because they got Husk Hollow, because we couldn't hold the bridge. Don't know why. Should have been easy, but yeah.
Oh, that was
how it
funny. I was on that bridge with a tank. And then,
you brought a couple of days over and they got deleted.
It was great because we had our tank, which was a captured warden BT, and another captured warden BT. And we're sitting on the bridge. We moved up and we were trying to get rid of the tank traps that were blocking it, but people were HMGing us and everything. So it was a bit hard. So we bring up the tank, try and use its HMG, clear it out, start getting tank traps. Then a second BT rolls up, starts blocking us. And we're like, oh, that's great. And then two toxic people, I won't name their names, got up and started threatening to blow up our BT as soon as we pulled it off the bridge, because we were being the toxic ones by having the tank on the bridge and asking the other tank to please get off said bridge so that we could maneuver.
If you were in my clan during that situation, all I heard was, guys, they're on the bridges. Why do we not have a gunboat? And I'm like, it's like late for my time. I'm like, fuck it, I'll do it. And I had to pull all these guys together. Had trouble finding shells, and we were like about 5 minutes just too late to go shell the tanks on the bridge. It was rough.
By then, we just had both the tanks off it, and we didn't have enough infantry because most of the infantry was sitting on the Jade ramp and getting slaughtered. and they weren't helping on the bridge, and it was just like, whatever.
All I can say is, whenever you're fighting, whenever Colonials or whoever is fighting on Jade Ramp, I'm always there. I'm always there with the gunboat, because there's always some armor piece who pushes their luck too far, and they get shelled
When
from
we were
100
done with our
meters away.
BT up, we were putting the BT away and everything. I sat there as infantry, and I ran up. I just wanted to see how the ramp was going, and I watched a BT and I think it was a capped ward BT and a normal Colonial LT. They're like, yeah, let's push up to the base of the bridge or the ramp. Sorry, had all this infantry, and then it just got slammed, and both of them died. And I just sat there and thought, Jesus Christ, what did I just watch?
Oh, I gotta ask Trekker, but Trekker had 3 light tanks sitting in Victa when they were fighting at Victa, and I hit them from 100 and I think something meters away, just a little out of range in the splash, and they all backed up into it and all died to it within 5 shells.
Oh my.
Hey, real quick, Teef, what'd you have for us here? I know the devs are gone and we're kind of a little more open now, a little more casual, but Teef, did you have anything for us? Any big questions, burning questions?
I had like 4 questions I written down.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Some of them were simple. One was kind of complicated and it's going to require extrapolating. But the whole asymmetrical discussion, I don't think we're in a phase where we should be talking about asymmetrical when the foundation isn't solid enough, when we still have the continuous issue of populations determines which side is really going to win a war, in my opinion. Like we have a win and loss deficit on Colonials. It used to be 11, now it's 5 to 6, and that's because the Wardens are having a population issue. They're experiencing the same issue that we had a long time ago when we had those 3 to 4 day wars. We kind of need to figure out a way to deal with the founding principles of balance issues before we start adding more problems to this fire. You know what I mean?
I agree with the sentiment. I will say about the deficit, and this is my opinion at least, but I'll say about the win-loss deficit, it's kind of hard to measure because the game changes so much over, relatively short periods of time that's kind of hard to judge. It's like the wins and losses are kind of weighted to a degree, you know what I mean? Because you could easily, I don't know that, I don't have the data on this. I'm sure you do when you looked at it. But if I'm not mistaken, I remember we're in the Colonials losing like 3 times in a row, but this was back when we were in one of the many valleys, like the peaks and valleys, and we were like one of the valleys of population where no one was really playing seriously. So it's like, do you count those successive victories? And then kind of like the update where battle tanks and rockets were first introduced. Like that's kind of a big, weighty victory that, 5 other smaller victories, maybe not 5, but 3 other smaller victories would have happened in that time. So I'd be cautious about using win-loss deficits as a
ratio,
as
like a buffer or whatever makes you feel like gets your ego going.
Well, yeah, but
the thing
is, go ahead.
idea is let's call it like a win gap scenario, where we basically say, okay, this war was a massive war, had a large players amount, and this war should be worth X amount of points, while a smaller war that nobody fought should be worth an X amount of points.
Maybe not like an actual metric, but more so just like in the spirit of things and in how people think about these wars. There is kind of a degree of what wars mattering more than others. But anyway, that's just a long-winded way of dancing around that. But I completely agree with the take that I don't know if we're ready for asymmetry yet, because how I think about it, I always think about Foxhole as a kind of a giant science experiment, right? And what are the rules of the scientific method, or at least how experiments are run? I'm not a scientist, but my basic understanding is that, you really need to test things, or rather, how do I say it? Before you add variables,
test it once, you don't know it's actually correct.
Exactly.
You have to have a level testing ground where there's the dependent variant and then you have the independent variant.
And the more tests you run without changing variables, the clearer of the results you have.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, I'm essentially saying the same thing you are, which is that have we run enough experiments with certain variables. I would agree with you that I don't think we have. For various mechanics run enough tests on those.
The reason why these experiments and tests haven't met their quantified values is because testing stuff in Foxhole is a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
You have to farm materials and you have to affect everyone around you to just do a 5-minute test. If I'm going out getting scrap and I want to test something, I'm effectively taking other resources that could be used to make supplies and help out the front to help out my team. But no, I'm some fuckboy in the back lines grabbing enough scrap and BMATs to test out bunker-based designs. I do this for 4 hours. I make the concrete, which obviously could have gone to someone who actually knows what the fuck they're doing with bunker bases. I'm hurting my team by experimenting and try things out. And here's the thing. New players, that's all they do. They're not gonna.
Yeah, they don't understand, and they'll sit there in the back and they'll screw with stuff, and then you have all the experienced people walking by and be like, "Yo, what the f you doing?" They're like, "Oh, I'm testing this." It's like, no, you're being dumb.
New players aren't just gonna sit there and Google all this shit. If they can't, a lot of the time, if people can't figure something out within the 15 to 20 minutes, they usually drop it. Foxhole is one of those extreme examples of we're a bunch of fucking weirdos. We don't understand what's going on, so let's keep playing the game until we do understand. Like, I've seen the argument that Foxhole is a niche game for niche people, but we don't have to make it a fucking niche game. We could stop these artificial restrictions, you know? A sandbox mode would greatly help the game in general, because the new players can just fuck around in the sandbox mode and not
Sandbox mode, or like the tutorial island, for instance?
The tutorial island?
Tutorial Island's gay, and I'll say that right out. I don't like Tutorial Island.
Tutorial Island teaches you how to be an infantryman and how to farm. It's not going to teach you how to fucking build. There's not enough room to go out there and build. Especially if you want to test out bunker designs or FOD designs or checking the range of a FOD. Here's the thing. Foxhole also relies on third-party software that people have made. You have to go to artillery calculator if you want to figure out how to fuck to use one of the most basic tools of artillery. You have to use Foxhole HQ if you want to plan out building and see the measurements of how a FOD can be just on a piece of paper. When these things should be in the game by default.
I'm with
you. This is where I'm coming from, that the foundation isn't strong enough for asymmetry when these basic quality of life changes should be in the game by now. These updates should be with these quality life changes before we get into the meat and bones of asymmetry, because all of us have experienced asymmetrical games, and all of us have sat on the community forums or discords bitching about how something just isn't balanced or how it doesn't work correctly. Okay, let's use Dead by Daylight as the current example, because all my friends won't shut the fuck up about it. I hate the damn game because it's not balanced at all. That's an asymmetrical game to the letter T, and there's just shit that's just completely better than the others just because of simple statistics, math, and how the game is played. Okay? Balancing is a nightmare when you put in asymmetrical gameplay. This is where I sort of appreciate PlanetSide 2 a lot, because what are the variables for asymmetrical PlanetSide gameplay? Heavy tanks and jets, the planes, and that's it. Everything is common pool. Everyone has
actually, hold on. The weaponry, the small arms fire, as well as so each faction does have their own Empire-specific fighter, Empire-specific like a plane fighter aircraft, as well as tank. Yes, but there's also the weapons, the small arms. There are a lot. There is a common pool. You're right, of the nanite systems weapons, but each faction does have their own small faction-specific small arms that correspond to their personalities.
I've been more active in this game, and I can tell you that everyone has access to a lasher type weapon now. I'm a Vanu player now. People have access to the Thumper. The Thumper is a nanite system weapon, and it works fundamentally almost the same as the lasher by spamming AOE attacks, standing on top of an ammo pack, and just basically locking down a hallway or corridor. That was a Vanu specific thing. Now TR and NC can do that shit.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
I've never played PlanetSide, and I completely understand what this man is saying.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, as someone who played Planet, and again, apologies for all the Foxhole viewers that we're talking about in another game, but I just remember one of the things that kind of turned me off was that while each faction was specific, and should be, of course, because that's what makes a faction, don't get me wrong, but it was just difficult because when you open the door to asymmetry in that way, you've kind of forever shut the other door, on ever claiming to say that things are balanced, because they never will be. And it's hard to quantify when things are asymmetrical. Now I should say, blanketing these entire past 5-7 minutes that we've been talking here, is that yes, it is. It will be impossible to ever get enough quote-unquote tests and experiments that give you the most accurate data, clean tests. Additionally, we could sit here for forever, just continuously running small tweaks behind the scenes, and then nothing new will ever get done. Nothing exciting. I don't know. I think ultimately that comes back down to an internal decision for Clapfoot. And again, we are at their mercy. I think that's something we need to accept right now, and should have for a long time, which is that while we provide input, ultimately it is their vision, quote unquote. And that's a cliche, but it's also true that, yeah, we're at their mercy here, and we'll just have to continuously express our discontent, as you are, Teef. Appreciate you coming on and saying that, but we're just kind of at their mercy. Doesn't mean we shouldn't just surrender to it, but we kind of should. I don't know. I'm being contradictory here, I know, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean here?
It's like, express your discontent.
Democracy. Mode will constantly provide consistent testing data, and it's one of the more easier things that you can implement in this game, because it's not requiring networking, it's not requiring map stuff. You can just basically grab an island, Control V it into a blank space, add some color to it, or whatever the fuck you want to do with the tutorial island to make it look pretty. In my opinion, if you provide a sandbox mode, you'll have people that are like at 2 to 3 a.m. on this damn thing, just trying to figure out how shit works, and they can provide the quantity and valuable research data to the devs, which they could probably do. Because let's face it, they're a company, they have 8-hour-a-day work days. I don't exactly know how they're working now with this whole corona shit going on. Indies have always been weird people where they make their own hours, and what they determine what is productive and what isn't they. But when you have a community full of dedicated people who just play a niche game and will clock in 2,000 hours, I don't think it's a bad idea to provide a mode where they can just test the fucking game for you constantly, and just give back anonymous feedback data with perhaps an in-game tool. So, like, for instance, you know how your game would crash, and then you have a box pop up like, hey, we noticed your game crashed. Would you like to submit a crash dump or some shit like that? You can do that with a sandbox mode, man. You can do it with a tutorial. What's the feedback with this shit?
I would say that there are certain things that you can only test on a live server with hundreds and hundreds of people, that not on a sandbox. But I understand where you're coming from, and certainly that would be good for a lot of lower level technical issues, kind of like an extended dev branch. I don't know. That's gonna have to be up to their point of view, but I don't know. I think it'd be helpful too. I know we also brought in how do you say your name? Stoker-Keay?
Stoker-Keay. Yeah.
Stoker-Keay, yes, of the CAW, Callahan's Armored Wolf. So glad to see them. Glad to see them still operating. Yeah, call. But as Teef was talking about with the tutorial stuff, you had stuff to say with that as well.
Yes, I've only been playing for about a month or two, so I'm relatively new.
That's fine.
But
fresh eyes.
going through that first tutorial area and then actually going into the rest of the game, that tutorial area teaches you pretty much nothing about logi or scrapping or how to do that.
Right.
And I feel like that is something that they really need to rework and update
Right.
as the game progresses.
I completely
That,
agree.
especially trenches, because I know I watched. The whole reason I found Foxhole is just this random YouTube video, and then it led me to Bear, and I watched all that. So I learned a lot of Foxhole before I actually got it, but I played it, and I went through the tutorial, I went through the gun and everything. I tried logi, and I was just like, this seems really drug out and not touched on. I'm just not going to touch this. I'll learn in the field. And then I run on down to the trench, and I'm just like, this teaches me nothing except how to use a shovel. All right,
let me say, those videos are probably now outdated too, to a degree. Let me just say as a disclaimer that the stated reason, and I think this is still the reason, that the tutorial is so useless, is because if they spend all their time making a new tutorial every time there's an update, you will see much slower updates. Like you see
it's not new tutorial island every update. It's just like
it
doesn't teach you much of anything. It's like it teaches you a rifle. Yeah, you can run out, grab a rifle, shoot some blueberries. But like besides that, I honestly didn't get anything out of that island.
Than the tutorial. When you compare a tutorial and a sandbox mode, the sandbox mode will always have the consistent options of what the current game has, or a tutorial will constantly require the developers to interfere and then change to current suit the environment. Where if you don't understand something, you can just hop in the sandbox mode and just figure this out yourself.
Yeah, but like with building and things like that, I feel like learning how to effectively place trenches and buildings and things like that is something that the tutorial needs. And it wouldn't even need to be updated every update because not much is changing on that front.
Yeah, I concur. I don't know behind the scenes on how much work it takes to make a new tutorial island. I guess it would just have to be. Honestly, I'm down with all these ideas. I quite agree with them. It's just a matter of we're not the people behind the desks making dirt money. But
yeah.
I guess hold on. Sorry. I guess we're also bringing people in here as well. We're just being much more open now that the devs are gone. A little less formal. Yeah, let's just bring everyone in here. I think this is everyone in the call.
Real quick. Can I tell everyone a quick war story I have?
We'll break it up there. Yeah, sure. Spots. Go ahead, and then we'll get back to the tutorial stuff.
Okay, so this was just yesterday. This was during the colonial blitzkrieg of Fernac Coast. We were pushing towards Terra, and out of nowhere, our BT started getting shelled by FA. So I got around Terra, found the FA, shot at it, didn't have a sticky at the time, and got killed. Promptly killed after that. So I got a sticky, went back there with another guy with me. I lobbed the sticky onto the FA, killing the FA. At the same time, the HMG guy killed their supply truck. So, and after that, I told our BT, FA dead, you're good to go.
All right, there you go.
So, rule number one, you should always make sure your FA has a good Foxhole coverage.
For sure. Browniemeister, Ray, do you have something here for us? I guess we'll go with Brownie first because he technically was on the higher on the queue.
Okay. As Stoker was saying earlier, I like the old island design better, where everyone spawned in a singular area. It made it much easier to teach new players.
I agree.
Because there would be someone on the monument, right near the town hall. So someone would like teach them about the game, but now everyone is like spawned out so far from each other. It's very hard to like get everyone, if that makes sense. Like introduce everyone to the game. I don't know if you were around for that time, Stoker.
I was not.
It was.
Nor was I.
It's much easier to.
It was easier.
Hold on. Yeah, so it was much easier to learn the game. I think the first person, it was like a lieutenant or something. It was like Coconut Nut or something. Or his name was like Darf or something. I forgot his name. it was like that guy who introduced me to the game. And I had a lot of fun. I feel like it was much more enjoyable for me because the tutorial by itself back then was shit.
To set the story, there was you would spawn like in front of a town hall, and that's where everyone would spawn as opposed to spread out across this quadrant-looking thing. And you would have a town crier in front of the town hall going, okay, every 5 minutes or every 20 minutes we're doing a tutorial. We'll gather around. It's like a tour, right? We'll do a tour of the tutorial. It was very fun. I did a few myself, and anyone who remembers the Foxhole Community Boot Camp, that was a little project we did. But now it's a little more spread out. It's a little harder to do that.
I mean, it's not impossible necessarily, but it's still much harder to do so.
I actually have a suggestion about how to make it easier. Maybe instead of having the training signs, maybe we have like a central plaza where all the arrows say central plaza, pointing towards like the middle of the spawn area. Everyone goes to the central plaza, and the new players can get like the central plaza will become like a tutorial teaching area. Like, long story short, the players can gather up there, and the players who need to be teaching, the tutorial tours can happen still.
I do like... Oh, sorry, you continue.
Oh, I was just going to ask Wraith if why don't you finish up your point, and we'll go to Wraith next.
I do like how they did change it up a bit. The spawn island is good because it's just the areas are much less congested than the old home island. I feel like it's much easier to walk around and do what you need to, like check the state of the war, then deploy, then do that stuff.
I think it's a technical issue, the reason why, but yeah, you should absolutely be able to access the world map from your... Well, no, I guess that's because then that becomes an issue of you can leak intel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the point of that was like so people can't just make ults, log in for 5 seconds, take a screenshot.
Well, I would counter that by saying intelligence needs to be reworked so that not everything is accessible to everyone. But that's a whole different question. Wraith, what'd you have for us here? Thanks for joining in, by the way.
Okay. There should be a sort of naming convention mechanic for enemies. Like, there's like this awesome player on the other side, and he keeps killing me. I want to give him a name. I want to like commend him, and then everyone else recognizes, oh, that player is a good player. Let's commend him, and then eventually that enemy player gets so many commends that the enemy side can give him a name. Like, oh,
so it's sort of infamy system.
Yeah.
So it would be like
he isn't some nameless guy. He's a freaking good player. Like, oh, he's the tank X, or he's the fucking artillery guy.
So, like, you can name him the Devil of Jade Cove or something.
Yeah, I encountered the other day during our BT op because I had cars as my commander and I'm the driver and everything. He's just trying to. He keeps seeing the BTs rolling up, and he's like, "Oh, that one has his hatch down." I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm trying to alt click on them so I can get their names because he's trying to figure out if that tank was scary or not." And I'm like, "Wait, you can do that?" And because I didn't know you could alt click on people in the binocs. And he's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Oh no, that's a 503rd dude." And he looked at this one dude and was like, "Wait, that's just a random. Okay, so we don't have to fear the tank on the left. The tank on the right's scary." And I was like, "Good to know."
I remember during the
about the idea of like player customizable name for the enemy side. I feel like if you play like war story games, like Ace Combat for example has a really good one, where the Yellow Squadron is just so feared that every time you see them you run away.
It's the Yellow Squadron.
Run!
Literally me at 4 years old.
Yeah, hold on, Wraith, what were you gonna say?
Well, speaking about names, who in the community right now has a special name? Like, like people that you are nasty.
Trekker the Alt.
Nothing positive. Nothing like healthy. It's
nothing
always
positive.
It's always something horribly like. It's like related
always
to
something
cheating
about
or
their bad
ulting.
side.
Basically, there's no. I can't think of anyone who has like a positive nickname.
Yeah, not even like an opposing, like a fearsome nickname or like something cool, or even if it's the opponent. No, it's always something bad.
I know Rod. Yeah. I have my own little name for Rod. It's little SMG boy because the first time I met him in the field, he came at my trench screaming through his mic at the top of his lungs and just dropped on in. scared the crap out of me, and I hide in the corner, and I see his name pop up, and just for a second read. I'm like, Rod, don't shoot! Then my press tag's on, I was like, ah!
You know, I've always thought about this as well, which is, I think I wrote this idea down somewhere that immediately got downvoted because that's the nature of things. But it was a a descriptive commend feature where you could attach like any kind of writing with your commend. So let's say you commend. Now, obviously, you can always commend someone. Just click commend, carry on with your life as if normal. But if you wanted to go the extra mile, because we're MMO players and we're weird like that, but you could be like, hey, commend, and then like, would you like to write something down? Yes, and then you can type out, hey, this guy was really cool. He healed me like 3 times out of the front line, saved my life every time. Thank you, this guy. And I think anyone reading this can trust him as well. And then you can like go to a player and see how many commends they have.
And you'll see all that.
Exactly.
Oh,
now,
like
on their
yeah, see, that's a great idea. That's a great idea, and I enjoy that idea until someone wastes their command and says, "This dude just stole my petrol," and everyone's
yes,
like, "Ah,
yes.
get away from my."
Now I should say you can. Yeah, I was about to say there's plenty of avenues of abuse if you just implement it like that. I think I also added
There's
that.
also the same thing with the what's it called? The naming system. Someone else could do
Easily,
that
yeah, abuse that.
Yeah.
You know, bully
Just
someone.
come in, cock and ball torture.
Yeah, write something really offensive on there. Yeah, that's definitely something to worry about. I will say with the commend idea that you can also you can always delete your own commends, which is to say the commend will still count, but then it won't be listed on your profile in case someone, or you can just block someone if someone decides to abuse
kind
it.
of like how Steam does it with comments on your profile.
Right, exactly. You can always delete your own, but I think that'd be cool just to, because again, as I said, we're in an MMO, we're weird people, and we put time and effort into this stuff, and that includes being positive sometimes. But I don't know. Go ahead.
As like a combination of both Spots, I believe, and your idea. It was like the naming or infamy system, I guess you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess instead of having like people name you, it would be like you could name yourself, like have like a cool little nickname that you can name yourself. Like I could just be Brownie instead of Browniemeister.
Oh right,
you know? But you could still see your Steam name by like clicking on you or going to the F1 menu.
No, I noticed.
So like, yeah, that's just an idea.
I think it would be interesting if we could also name vehicles.
Yes.
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 I want to be able to name my tank.
Who was this?
Like that.
Was I working on? Was this me, or was I working on this with someone? Anyway, it was a naming idea where you couldn't simply type anything out, because obviously people will just do like, you know, F space U space C space K. But anyway, it would be you have like a long list of predetermined things you can mix and match. So like colors,
Big Bessie,
materials. Yeah, exactly. But like you could do Big Bessie, you could do Green Bessie, you could do Green Iron Bessie, Big Iron Bessie.
I actually like that a lot.
I like that.
Big Iron, the hip.
Big Iron Bessie 4, you know, something like that, and you could just mix and match the various menus. This is all like just side stuff, but it's fun to talk about.
That's actually a very cool idea. I don't like the idea of like naming yourself.
Yeah, because that'll just get stupid.
But see, if the infamy system can work with that too, like again, like the Devil of Victa or something, like people might name you that, or
God, imagine being that player, and it's just like, what are you known for? I'm the Devil of Victa.
And there's about 1,000 votes, 1,000 upvotes that supplement that. I think there's a way to quantify that too.
Like
you just all click, and it's just 300 people agreeing this is the Devil of Victa. It's like, oh, I'm officially scared to be under your command.
It's kind of
upvote to bring Jesus Christ to the battlefield.
Yo, we got. I forgot to fucking upvote
that
Colonial Crusaders.
We're going off the rails here. I do apologize, but we're kind of winding down and just shooting the shit. But I guess I will close with there's a lot of cool things that we simply wish, because we could go on talking for an hour just about naming things alone. I can guarantee that. And that just shows how passionate the community is. But we'll have to see where this next update goes, kind of bringing it back, I guess, to a degree there. Because, asymmetry, that's a huge rabbit hole that, we just have to accept is going to happen now because the work's already been done. But in terms of how we respond to that, well, we will see. KFC made a very good point about two. Well, I guess I brought up 2 ways, but he was bringing up how, he is hoping that instead of people going, well, here's how things should be tweaked internally and how the developer should fix something, maybe we should go, okay, this is an advantage this vehicle has. How do we counter that with the tools that are currently in the game? I don't know.
Here's the thing, though.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Foxhole isn't Team Fortress 2 where you can just throw broken weapons at broken weapons. Foxhole is Foxhole and TF2 is TF2.
Okay, can you expand on that? How is TF2 TF2 and how is Foxhole Foxhole?
TF2's balancing is so completely broken and whack is that it balances itself out because you could just do something that's completely broken and stupid that counteract the thing that this other player is abusing.
That's interesting.
That's a take.
You have 15 years of this game being out, and the amount of exploits that you can pull off in Team Fortress 2, you can just find videos of it constantly everywhere, and it can be a viable game strategy. And you see people countering this shit by just pulling a completely out of left field exploit to deal with this shit.
So are you saying embrace the exploits or something along those lines?
That's basically what TF2 balancing has done, is that they just embrace that it's completely broken, so let's just keep introducing more wacky random bullshit to the equation. That's their way of solving it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's a team deathmatch game with occasional objectives on different game modes. Foxhole is an MMO, which have years of symmetrical balancing, and the only difference of being maps and where people spawn and if we attack from the north or from the south, and that in itself gave variables of advantages and disadvantages.
Right. Well, actually, you bring up a good point, which is that Team Fortress 2 kind of isn't asymmetrical because all the weapons are available to theoretically, well, certainly both teams, and it's just down to who has what at any given moment. I guess that's the kind of asymmetry there, or that's the kind of symmetry there as well. But can you go into how Foxhole is Foxhole then, compared to that?
In Foxhole is that there's always consequences to your action, even if you pull off a good action. For instance, you managed to take a fucking town, congratulations. You have 40 people that are surrounding you that may be burned out and are about to log off. And now you're going to lose the fucking town because everyone's tired from taking it.
And you will still feel, because this is a persistent world, you will feel the ramifications of that 100 days from now.
Or you can have an intense match of Team Fortress 2 and then fucking leave the match, hit the re-queue button, and now you're in another match that may be filled with just as sweaty people as you were playing with before, but a completely different server and game mode. Yeah. A 20-minute match is easier to sit through and digest, where a game can take potentially a month to finish. Remember, wars used to last for like a month back in.
I believe the devs have stated they would, in an ideal world, obviously they're not there yet, but they would ideally like wars to last for 3 months.
They can eat ass. No.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry, Mark. But
hold on. Let me say.
Not possible.
Let me say this. It's not possible at this current juncture, but and certainly not by 1.0. I'll tell you that much. But that is a goal that they have, and just because they have a goal now doesn't mean it's unattainable. Maybe more progress will be made once they get there, and things might change. I don't know. I'm thinking back to when we had when people were talking about the open world, and they were saying no, everything should stay as single server maps, and we shouldn't have a connected world. But I don't know. Yeah, right now that's kind of impossible. But hey, 3 months, that would be pretty cool.
As well as that, adding to the 3-month thing, we definitely need longer wait times in between wars. Just a day between wars is too short.
No, I disagree also.
I would agree, but only if you supplement it with something else, like, for instance, a finished resistance phase, or
Yeah,
or,
a,
or my suggestion is something like a
Maybe-
sandbox in between wars.
Maybe in between they could do like another like arcade game mode or something like
Or
that.
something
to
like Dead
kinda
Harvest
keep
in
players
between that.
interested.
Let me say
Because
this.
right now in Resistance phase, I'm noticing a lot of players dropping off and just not playing during that.
Right. I agree that is the thing. I will say that, what was I going to say? That I do lean towards the approach of the end goal being everything should be, a continuous, connected experience to a certain degree. So what I'm saying is I would disagree with having a Dead Harvest mode every war or every other war, because that just feels like a random, whoa, what is this, out of nowhere? And yeah, Halloween.
I really want to be part of a Dead Harvest now.
Yeah.
Ever since I learned about it, I'm just like, dang, well, not glad. That's the wrong word. Definitely wrong word. I hate the fact I missed that because I heard of it and I was just like,
They're pretty fun.
Here's the thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Hella fun. I feel like there should be actual mini games instead of just like go inside a war map and dick around for a bit, like a Dead Harvest, like a mini version of Dead Harvest, with the mechs, with the zombies, with that, because that would be fun.
Real quick, I know what will work good with this. The original Dead Harvest, not the second Dead Harvest that was just basically Dead Harvest but with the entire map and no one was playing. The original Dead Harvest, if you played it, it was on the Iris. It was basically both factions had to work together in the middle of the Iris versus the horde of zombies. That was fun.
Yeah, there's a difference between the first Dead Harvest and the second Dead Harvest. The first one was a cooperative, if you're familiar with Killing Floor, it was kind of basically like that, where
Or
you
Halo
just spend
Zombies mode, Infection mode.
Yeah. Yeah, and then second Dead Harvest was a shit show because people weaponized the zombies to use against each other on the faction. When you
Okay,
hit a zombie, you would
can I ask how that happened?
Colonial Zombie Alliance we used to attack wardens, then they betrayed us.
Yeah, I don't know honestly jack shit about how anything went down in the Dead Harvest. Can someone explain to me what? What do you mean they weaponized the zombies?
It was basically one faction would just purposely become zombies and just constantly harass the other faction, giving their an advantage
So
to build
I have it
up.
correct where if you die, you technically become a zombie, correct?
And you should, and the theory is that the intent was that you play as zombies attacking indiscriminately. However, the previous faction that you were as, people would fall back to those allegiances as zombies and kind of weaponize the zombies as opposed to them just being an independent agent of chaos attacking everything. And yeah, hey, it's a fun mode that I don't think they put a lot of that deep of effort into because they had a regular game to play. And going back to my point, I think that I lean more towards, and this is why I'm kind of opposed to a sandbox, do whatever you want mode. While great for testing, kind of takes away from the experience, don't you think? And like something like a Dead Harvest every single war or every other war would kind of take away from the experience. I don't know. I kind of this is
I
why
was
I'm so
saying an event like Dead Harvest. It's like a mini game, not like Dead Harvest every single war, because
Sure.
then people would get bored of that.
But then I would say even any mini game that isn't connected to what will happen, that isn't connected from the previous war, and what will happen in the next war. Because I'm not a big fan of how, personally, I'm not a fan of how everything kind of resets, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion about the resetting thing, I want to see like at the end of every war, like if there's bunkers remaining and stuff, those bunkers should be decayed around the map. You see like decayed and destroyed bunkers, you can go in and find maybe some supplies in.
Or like
honestly,
buildings that have in terrain that's been like hit with storm cannons.
Yeah.
Being altered would be cool and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
on a technical
To be
level, that would be an absolute nightmare. But I will say that
Yeah.
I think in my dream version of the game, whatever happens in the game stays there for the rest of the game's life. And by that I mean not just physically,
So what
but
do you
like
mean?
where the line is drawn at the end of a war. That's where the line is drawn for the next war. And personally, now I know what you're thinking. Hey, won't that mean one side will just continuously wail and win against the other side? Yes.
Nope.
Nope.
I think
I love the idea of losing and winning streaks. I love that idea because that
Okay,
sets up.
here's the thing.
Go
I
ahead.
feel like
Go
every
ahead.
time a faction loses, they get like a small little buff. Like they might get, I don't know, like like 5k
maybe.
more salvage in node or something. It's just a quick little idea. Like a small buff that doesn't affect the war too much,
Yeah,
but it's enough to help them.
And let me say, I wouldn't make it so much to a degree. Yeah, there will be safety rails in place where, yeah, it's not that one side will completely trap the other in literally one town, and then every new war, yeah, they just firebomb this one town, and it's just continuous death for 2 weeks, and then that's the
Hell
war.
on earth, the trenches mean death.
Remember that those win deficits and loss deficits are tied to population. If people don't show up to play, Colonials or Wardens just might be fucked for that war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hate, honestly, obviously, we're... Go ahead, sorry.
This is absolutely why I hate the deficit stuff, because it's usually tied to population. If people aren't playing the game, one side is clearly going to have a clear advantage over the other, and this is usually tied to burnout. This is why I fundamentally disagree with war should last 3 months at their vision. I think their vision is wrong, and they should probably go back to the drawing board with it. I'm not saying go back to skirmish mode. I'm not saying that at all, even though I do like skirmish mode and think it should still be a part of the game, especially when resistance mode is completely unfinished and just bare bones, where skirmish is fleshed out, unique, and already done. Maybe that should still be there, where resistance phase is sort of just like unfinished and taking over where skirmish used to be, you know? Like, I'm not saying we should go back to the one-map wars at all.
Right.
But I don't think war should last 3 months either. I'm supporting the idea of maybe like a month at most, 2 to 3 week wars. Yeah, sure. Because, like, you can hop on, like, 2 days out of the week and participate in the war and not suffer from burnout. But if you, like, come back on the play and see that your team is still having the same fucking problem it had weeks ago, you're going to lose the motivation to play because of that. It's because it feels like your team's not making progress unless you're there to give it progress.
Actually, this is adding an idea that one of my I think it was Rosgree's idea about expanding more into Felly. Expanding the map.
I don't think a map expansion won't be a good idea for a few more updates. Until we get like
not
a
right now, but like in the future for like their end goal of 3 months wars.
Until we get a stable population of players on both sides, I don't think expanding the map most of the time nowadays is like half a map or 3/4 of a map. Expanding the map doesn't make sense at a time. Right now, I mean.
Right.
When I first came in the Foxhole, and I drew out some comparisons to running with rifles on it, because I think having the idea of AI soldiers running around to make up for a fact your team doesn't have players is a nice idea, especially when you're in an indie game struggling to have a stable population. I've gone over it, and I don't really see the problem with these AI counterparts making up for the fact of lack of player presence. The thing is that you shouldn't have a system that over relies on AI either. Okay, it should just be there to sort of like a bandage, if you will.
Isn't that what the defenses already are?
You have defenses, but like here's what you do with defenses: you log in at 2 a.m. with a mortar and you delete them.
Right, because they're AI.
What if they got out of the fucking foxholes and chased you down?
No.
You can't.
That would be a horror game. That would be more of a horror game.
Hold on. Let's clear chat. I'm sorry. I think Brownie had a point here to make. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I feel like if
sorry, Stoker. Hold on. Clear chat. Stoker, go ahead.
My only issue with the AI would be trying to program a way to make it so their aim isn't dead on and they don't immediately lock on to even kill you.
Yes. Who was this?
Like, I feel like that would be the only issue with the devs, as small as the team is, trying to completely make new AI and a new system for that.
See,
fair point.
if I can speak real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you can speak, Rafe. Okay, wait. Rather than them coming out of foxholes and shooting you with like bodies, let them have like fall back. Like you destroy one foxhole and the people that were the AI in that foxhole retreat tunnels and trenches for different foxhole, reinforcing that foxhole in the back.
What about the person that's already in that foxhole? What about the existing AI in that foxhole? Does it get a buff?
Yes.
Interesting.
Because there's now more in that foxhole.
But
what's sort of limit, like a physical space limit?
What
where like
stops
to the point where you cannot enter the foxhole because there's so many AI in that foxhole. But like if you approach as an enemy, you just get shot down by like 10 guys.
Real quick, another thing about foxholes is that I kind of like how you like are basically invincible inside of them. Bunkers, I understand because they're fortified with wood or concrete, and tanks I understand that as well because tanks are metal boxes that are meant to absorb a lot of shots and shrapnel. That was like the idea of the tank. Machine gunner can't kill people. Machine gunner gets killed. He has to hide, but you can't. But with machine gunner is a metal box that is immune to bullets. That was like the idea of the first tank.
My problem with the AI falling back in the foxholes is what stops a faction from just completely covering the map in foxholes. Thus, when one gets destroyed, you have a line of buffed foxholes.
That's actually a very good point. I didn't think about that.
You have decay, you have garrison supplies, you have bunker supplies, and then you have the radius of what is functional, what isn't with fobs, where you put in the upgrade parts. The thing with the AI stopgap measure is that they would only turn on when there's no active players within the region. Okay, if you have a maxed out region, why the hell would AI pop out of the trenches and start shooting people from the back? I'm talking about for those backline regions where you only have like 2 to 3 players. They're maybe just sitting there watching their cooking timers or like organizing supplies or getting ready to start the delivery. My thought process is that the AI should only be in regions where players can't respond or be there to stop what's going on. Okay, you have this meta of PvE stuff. Well, if we are going to have this meta of PvE stuff, wouldn't it be more fun to, instead of shooting these little hit boxes and squares with a mortar, that those little boxes and squares would start shooting back at you and start making things more interesting? Or do you want to just keep killing foxholes completely easily and unopposed?
Okay. Here's an idea. Okay. I don't think it should be like in every single place where you put a foxhole. They can't. I don't think they fall back, if that makes sense. I think it would only be in like cities or something, or like in like 200 meters of a city. These guys would like fall back. Not to make sense. It makes sense kinda, because you can't just make Maginot lines with these buffed foxholes, as Stoker said.
Maybe there's a cap. Maybe there's a cap on them. I don't know.
The reason why partisans are so strong is because it requires a human person to deal with this problem. Partisans will leave when they feel like they want to, but if there's someone QRFing the partisan, that QRF can make the partisan log off for the night. If you have the AI being more fleshed out and being able to defend themselves against these partisans during these dead hours, at least the partisan's going to have more fun somebody shooting at them than just basically killing buildings for an hour and a half with all these EMATs they farmed.
Yeah, I got an idea. Let's rather than bring them as AI, little conscripts, and we volunteers.
Because you can still tie them to fobs. If a foxhole is in range of a fob and it has the upgrade in it and it has garrison supplies, the foxhole should work. You can still tie it to these. You can still tie these active.
Sorry.
AI stuff to the buildings with the fobs as it is right now. You just add on to the existing system. You don't make a brand new system to it. You just add flavor to it.
I think I just looked at the time, and I think we're definitely way over. But I'm very glad we had this talk even after the devs left. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to close it here. As always, I encourage all these ideas to be written down, because if you can talk about it, you can certainly write about it. And putting it on Reddit, where it'll be downvoted to oblivion, but at the by the usual trolls.
Because the only thing that's allowed on the Foxhole Reddit is memes.
Exactly, but write it down for posterity, so at least you have it. That's always my point of view. At least that's how
I feel like we need to separate. Like we need to.
You go on Reddit for drama. That's what you do, man. That's what the Foxhole Reddit page is for. Is someone writing up 5 paragraphs on how they hold the council.
For sure, but there's been some great ideas like that rank profile overhaul. That profile overhaul. That's a great idea. That that would easily get lost in the Discord. That's the thing I like about the Reddit. For all its problems, at least it has staying power for a couple days. And if you put something in Discord, who the hell's gonna scroll 5 minutes back up to see something that was quickly flushed out?
Forum instead of Reddit, because a forum, everything can be archived. A Reddit, you have to dig for it to archive it.
Yeah, that's true too. But go ahead.
I have one more idea. Okay.
And we'll close with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's a medium length one. I had this idea while I was just doing Logi one day. It's basically a POW camp idea. Okay. It's not gonna be players, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to give it a read real quick, let me put that.
I see the document.
Yeah, if you want to give that a read real quick, basically what it is it's not run by
players.
You don't put players inside of it. It's like you might take critically injured soldiers from the other side and put it inside a POW camp, or like when you capture a town, you might get prisoners who surrendered, or like you can send them to the back lines to passively make salvage or BMATs.
Even if it's something as innocuous as deliver them to the town hall, and then they will just provide they'll provide 100 scrap over a period of 5 minutes. Just a small buff. Yeah, even if they're not physically there at the scrap fields, just something to shoot for. That sounds like a cool idea. That's
interesting.
It's utilizing the.
Isn't it just a player-made mine, though?
Real quick.
No. Here's the thing that comes in.
Imagine during the war, you can liberate these POW camps.
Right, that would be the logical next step.
SS.
And it would buff your.
I haven't worked on the idea a bit. I'm gonna work on it a bit like tomorrow or something.
Yeah.
And next time you guys do this, I'll show you the updated version.
For sure. Yeah. Please post it on Reddit.
Basically the updated version. Sorry, not the updated version. What this basic idea it's basically a factory and a refinery.
Mm-hmm.
It won't produce like mid-game to end-game stuff. It will produce like HEs, base explosives, basic weapons like SMGs, rifles, carbines, that kind of stuff. It's just you can like passively have them produce them. Like the more POWs you have in a camp, the faster that production is.
And maybe you can.
Just so you don't have to. Yeah, continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say maybe you can direct them as to what to make. So it's like, hey, I delivered this POW. You probably wrote this, I'm sure. But it's like, hey, I brought this POW here. Let's set them to make scrap, or let's set them to make oil, or something. I don't know.
Yes, it's just to help logistics player focus. Not logistics. Players.
Because I
focus on the later game. You have so many things that you need to produce: howitzer shells, tank shells, that kind of stuff. You need to focus on the big things, not the little things. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, I remember I saw a suggestion on FOD about like a building in like all the major industry towns where you just put BMATs into it and it passively makes G supplies.
Yeah,
So
something like
basically,
that.
where these not abandoned wars, Jesus Christ, POW camps would be, they would be in places that have like a factory or something,
Right.
but don't have a refinery. Like abandoned ward, you might find like a POW camp. In Jade Cove, you would find a POW camp.
So what you're doing? Yeah, no, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I'm just saying what you're doing is you're essentially turning the critical soldier mechanic of the opposing team, turning that into a variable resource.
Yes, so it gives you, there might be a special vehicle where you can put these soldiers inside. It might just be an ambulance still, but they might be like a prisoner,
Yeah.
like vehicle where you could transport them to these POW camps. These POW camps will serve as like frontline logistics, quote unquote, air quotes. But it's just to help do frontline logistics. Because you're not going to drive all the way to the back line just to put this one critically injured dude in a prison. That doesn't make sense. So places where these might occur would be, you might have like 3 or 4 POW camps per region. One might be in the capital, and like 3 will be set around in like random towns. Like in Luster, you would have 1 POW camp. In Rotdust, you would have a POW camp. In
or
what's it called?
Something like that, yeah.
What if you like you drop them off? You can casually drop them off at an outpost or town hall, and then logistics drivers can pick them up, and then take them back to Logi towns.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. If we did that and have them make supplies, what happens to all the Logi drivers and the Logi clans that already do that stuff? Like, what are they going to be doing if we get those AI to start doing that?
I think they're going to be, in my opinion about that, is that they're going to actually, they can shift their attention to something else important.
Yes, like building tank shells, building howitzer shells, things that require a little bit more time and effort into building. So like you don't have to worry about building these crates of rifles, these crates of rifle ammo, these crates of rifle ammo. You can focus on other things that a specific front needs. Like, if you're just waiting, like you're just passively having these POW camps produce crates.
Or a build buff, a construction buff.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Let me say, we could keep going on this forever. I do have to get going. But my first instinct when I first saw this idea, just offhand, literally judging a book by its cover, I immediately winced and cringed because I'm like, ooh, okay, we're introducing the concept of prisoners of war as a concerted mechanic into a video game. However, if you think about it, in Foxhole, we do worse than that by not taking prisoners of war at all. Like, we straight up just execute people on the spot. If anything, it's worse.
I remember today a PT surrendered.
Yeah.
And we gave him a fair trial and then found him guilty and did a firing
Exactly.
squad on him.
So my counter argument to that argument I just made up, but the counter argument I would say, if you implemented a concerted POW mechanic, you would actually encourage nonviolence to a degree. And encourage, but that's funny.
See, I've already understood that people will judge this and say, "Oh, POW camps? That's like a war crime or something." But you know,
but if you add that mechanic, you're actually supporting the idea. You're actually being more in line with the rules of war and international and mercy than if this mechanic wouldn't be introduced.
I feel like no one would have a problem with that, considering people kill field medics.
Right, exactly.
Weapons. We use chemical-based weaponry, aka green ash, which is against basically every convention out there, as well as that we shoot medics on sites because medics are higher value than
or like
any other
Sunhaven
in the game.
suggestion.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to have it so enemy faction players could also go into POW camps if the people wanted to do a little bit more of the
launch
RP side of
rescue
that.
operations into these towns and rescue these prisoners. I haven't thought about that, and I'll get you in the updated version once I've thought about that.
I think if you rescue them, you should get like some basic supplies.
Or you get refunds.
More soldier supplies.
Yeah, they lose resources and you gain resources.
You would gain more resources than if you were to not
leave
to.
Okay. Let's stop right now because I have to get going. Write all this down, please, and post it. That sounds awesome. I'm glad we closed with this. But I do have to get going. Thank you so much to all of our callers. Apologies to all those who couldn't make it in for the devs. And thank you to the devs themselves, of course. Can't wait to get back into Foxhole at some point. Hopefully we can get in by the next major update. This coming summer update on August 12th. But we'll just have to see, because it's been busy out there. But as always, good night, good fight, and we can't wait for the next one. Thank you.
The PressCorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in early 2018 by former PlanetSide 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain-in-Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the PressCorps Discord through the link below.